and gentlemen, let's go. Let's go. We ain't got no time to waste. Let's go. Let's go. You are now listening to Jason Anderson, and you are in the zone.
You're in the zone with Jason Anderson on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
You know, last week we went around and asked what we wanted to see in the game, preseason game number 1, and I found out this week that we didn't ask Beards what he wanted to see.
Was he upset about that?
Nor did I even know he had an answer until a couple of days ago. We were having a conversation, and Beards was like, well, this is something I had on what I wanted to see last Friday, which you didn't ask me about, but that's okay. No, not a big deal. But had you asked me about it, this is one of the things I would have wanted to see in the game, and we can talk about it now 5 days later. So we will go. Beard, should we start with you?
I actually don't have anything this week.
You're in the zone on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
All right, a Thursday edition of The Zone right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Jason Anderson with you. Josh Brisco, Beards, heading up until 2 o'clock. The next 4 hours, we've got you. Talk some NFL football, talk some college basketball today throughout the show. We'll hear from the Kansas City Chiefs Coordinator Day today. Dave Tobe, Steve Spagnuolo, Eric Bieniemy. And we'll see which players may or may not be at the podium today. That will come up at 1 o'clock today. So moving schedules around with the final week of the season. We'll see if they are even having press conferences next week. Let's hope they're not having press conferences next week, which would mean that they have the bye and they have the week off. We'll see. We'll talk about some of the things that are coming out from at least those that are talking with some inside the league offices in some options that are being discussed right now. Fair, unfair. I'm not sure you can really come up with an equitable, fair decision that is good for all parties involved, and everybody feels like, yeah, cool. We've got we didn't get the short end of the stick here. So we'll talk about some of those things as the show progresses. Ken Swanson, KC Sports Network, KC Laboratory Podcast. We'll talk with him coming up at 11 o'clock. Get his thoughts on this Chiefs team. Moving forward, heading into the postseason, is there an added importance to the game on Saturday besides just, hey, win, and you, at the worst, cannot be the number 3 seed, depending on what happens with the NFL? And today or tomorrow, at least those that are around the NFL, that there is an expectation that the decision would be made, or at least released today or tomorrow before the games start. We'll find out. I would imagine that they would definitely want to have all the information to know what next week will look like, if it is going to be the playoffs, or if it's going to be a standalone Week 19 game with the Bills and the Bengals. So we'll have an idea before the Chiefs kick off on Saturday about what that game means, and it could just simply mean win and you're the 1 seed. Could also be that win and you're the 1 seed if the Bills end up losing the next day or against the Bengals the next week, depending on what decisions are going to be made. So we'll talk with Ken Swanson about what that may mean. But outside of that, just what you want to see from the Chiefs. And would it matter? Like, let's say the Chiefs go out there and they're 4 of 4 from field goals and 2 of 2 on extra points. Or let's switch that. 4 of 4 on extra points and 2 of 2 on field goals. Do you then go into the postseason and go, all right, it's all fixed. All good. It is just fine. Because we were sitting here last week at this time saying, you know what? Looks like they may have gotten it figured out. Perfect on the kicks against Seattle. Now just make it a couple of games in a row and feel like, all right, everybody's on the same page. Let's go. And then, so would that even matter if that happens? I'd say this. It matters from just simply shooting par. Because the opposite of that, looking like it did against Denver this last weekend, there's real fear and cause for concern heading into the postseason. So we'll talk about that with Ken Swanson, who, by the way, I found out by reading KC Sports Network that he was a holder for 3 years at Mid-American Nazarene. I knew he was a Chase Daniel type quarterback.
That's right.
That might have been the smartest, best backup quarterback in college football, probably.
I mean, I would say just football.
Yeah, that's probably. I shouldn't qualify it by saying college football. So maybe the smartest, best, most capable of all backup quarterbacks in football. And I would also say football, too, just in case he needs to go out there and score a goal, because I know that had he been the one in my position, he would have scored that goal. So technically he was the backup for the pass, and he was more capable than the one that was actually receiving said pass in that very unfortunate night. Very unfortunate night, which turned out also a tie. Nobody won that game. That was it was great to see that nobody won that game that night.
What I remember.
What I remember of that
Is that
game.
what you remember happening?
Do not remember that game at all. I remember walking out on the field and then nothing after that.
I remember that fat dub.
Was it a fat dub?
It was a fat dub.
Was it like a skinny dub?
P-H-A-T dub.
Wasn't like just a getting in shape dub?
It was a YW.
Is that dub have a New Year's resolution of getting back in shape?
Nope. That dub is in the exact shape it was supposed to be. Fat.
That dub is fat bastard.
That's right.
That dub is like, who am I kidding?
Dubs are dubs.
I eat because I'm unhappy, and I'm unhappy because I eat. It's a vicious circle.
Fat dub. You got to do the all four fingers out on the dub when you do it with two hands.
That's weight room.
Because now it's a fat dub.
Yeah, but that's not even dub. That's weight room.
Yeah.
That's getting the weight room, man. Hey, weight room.
I don't know that you would have any way of knowing what either of those things would be, weight rooms or dubs.
I've been in a weight room. I just don't do as much as the people around me in said weight room.
All right.
Oh man, you got
dubs though.
You want me to? You don't want me to spot you.
Hey, can I spot? Hey, I'll spot you. No,
little help here. What he needs? No, I'm the spotter. I need help.
I need a little
help in spotting this guy, please. He's got more than one plate on that bar. So we'll talk with backup quarterback and all-star holder at Mid-American Nazarene, Kent Swanson.
I wasn't even thinking about it when I got dressed today, but I got a little Pioneers pride here in the studio today.
Hey,
so really just going to be a meeting of the minds.
I didn't know I was doing this. Wink, wink. Not at all. I had no idea.
We'll put on a lot of blue today. I don't know what happened.
Ken Swanson, 11 o'clock, KC Sports Network, KC Laboratory Podcast, and the Chiefs coming up at 1 o'clock. 913-912-4810 is the text line to join us. 913-912-4810 to text in. You can tweet the show at J810 Anderson and at JB Brisco.
At JB Brisco, at Beards McFly, at Sports Radio 810.
Ooh, yeah.
Write us a letter. Mail it to the station. We'll read it.
Send a raven.
Send a raven.
It'll come right here to the balcony.
If we get a bird on our balcony here that has some sort of scroll, either like tied to its leg or in its claw or whatever, I will go out there and get it, and I will open that and read that scroll on air.
Josh, weren't you doing a show where a bird hit the window?
That did happen one day. Yeah, we did have a funeral for a bird on a Sports Saturday one time.
We would have to then play the music.
And
you would come in. Hear ye, Josh Brisco, now with the announcement from the Raven that has been sent to the balcony of Sports Radio 810 WHB. Josh, go right ahead.
I've always considered myself kind of a town crier, in a lot of senses of the word.
I figured you were just the Joker.
Also, definitely
just a town gesture.
Definitely a lot of those things. I really feel like I would have had a lot of job opportunities in medieval times, and then probably wouldn't have lived that long.
Down.
It's the medieval times.
Red Knights going down. Down. Red Knights going down. So I wanted to get into some football, some college basketball, but 913-912-4810. There is an update on Damar Hamlin. Josh, you've seen this and have been reading a little more than I have the last 15 minutes or so.
There was also another one literally right about at 10 o'clock. So, yeah, I can just kind of give you the rundown here. And it's all sounding like cautiously optimistic good news so far on Damar Hamlin. So three quick updates. One from the Bills, tweeting out a statement saying, per the physicians caring for Damar Hamlin at the University of Cincinnati Medical Center, Damar has shown remarkable improvement over the last 24 hours. While still critically ill, he has demonstrated that he appears to be neurologically intact. His lungs continue to heal, and he is making steady progress. We are grateful for the love and support we have received. Then shortly thereafter, right around then, Kair Elam tweeted out what he had seen from him. I'm going to have to go find that one again. And then just recently from Coley Harvey of ESPN, who's been there on the ground. This whole story is one of the reporters you might have seen right after the game on ESPN. He tweeted, "Can confirm DeMar Hamlin has been gripping the hands of his family members.
Wow.
Also told we will hear nothing from the family at the moment as they are still processing these developments."
That's awesome.
But that kind of gives you a point of reference for where he's at right now, and tremendously good news there. Kair Elam's tweet was, "Our boy is doing better, awake, and showing more signs of improvement.
Awesome.
Thank you, God. Keep the prayers coming, please. All love, 3."
That is really good.
Lots of good news today on DeMar Hamlin.
So maybe that helps in the healing process. Maybe it helps in the focus, maybe around the league of getting back to, okay, he's getting better. We can also get back to focusing and being able to compartmentalize our grief and our concern with teammate / brother in the NFL while knowing that 48 hours there are going to be football games played. 72 hours, you're going to be out there with the rest of the slate of games that are going to be played on Sunday that you got to go out and get a job to do. And the Patriots have a job to do in trying to make the playoffs. The Bills have a job to do trying to, get maybe the 1 seed, maybe the 2 seed, we'll find out when all of this stuff eventually comes down. 913-912-4810, but did want to get that update out there, which is good. I had a quick aside because I didn't see this this update, not being on social media or on the internet the last 15 minutes or so, but very quick aside. Had my first, how do I talk with 7-year-old about what he saw and what is going on, because he came into our room the other night because he had a nightmare. He had a bad dream. So then yesterday I get home from work, and I'm like, hey, buddy, so I know that you had a bad dream and you came in our room. What was it about? And he goes, I dreamed that the football player didn't wake up. I was like, oh, okay, so let's talk. Let's have a discussion. And at that point, I'm like, do I just be completely honest that, hey, sometimes some bad things happen. The world isn't perfect. You got to know that, there are times in life when sad things happen. He looks like he's progressing, things are going well, so you don't have to worry about that right now, buddy. But yeah, it was interesting just from a 7-year-old that had witnessed that, because he was watching the game. He was excited about even though I was at, bar and restaurant, his uncle and aunt and cousins are Bengals fans. So, he's going to watch the game, and so he likes different players and things like that. So he was paying attention. It was so early in the game that it wasn't like, oh, he's asleep or something like that. So, that was interesting yesterday. All right. So, I have no idea. I'm flying blind on this too. I've never had a situation like that before. It's the first time with them, and I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to be honest with them. I'm not going to lie. Just say, you know what, buddy? There are things that happen in life, and there are accidents that happen, there are injuries that happen, and, we just got to sit back and hope that things work out well, know that there are doctors, there are people that are there to help us, and those that are trained their entire lives to be in that position, and we'll see. But right now it looks positive, and you don't have anything to worry about right now, okay? So
I bet that's a pretty common conversation being had around the country, though. I mean,
bet a lot of it in Buffalo and Cincinnati.
Especially,
there are a lot of conversations
like you said,
that.
I mean, early in the game, kids watching a big Monday Night Football game, a lot of parents wanted to stay up and watch that. Hey, kid, we'll put you to bed at halftime, but, we want to get this game in now. This has been sort of one of the recurring themes for every step of this conversation, but it's just, how does everyone process this? And you're finding lots of people processing it lots of different ways. We didn't have a whole lot of time to talk about it after pressers yesterday since they were later.
Yeah.
But I've never heard a Chiefs press conference that somber, ever. I mean, I haven't heard all of them. Teicher next week would probably have more to choose from, obviously, and you go back far enough, and there have been some horrific things in the recent Chiefs history, but in the time that I've been covering the team, I mean, there were even around Alex Smith's injury and kind of when all of that was really tumultuous, a lot of that was, it was a football injury, and then the really crazy stuff we didn't really fully know about until he was in a better place. And I think most of that would have happened in the offseason probably, now that I'm thinking about it. So I'm not even sure what the timeline of that would have been. Patrick Mahomes isn't up there doing a bit most days, but there's a different energy in the voices of all of those guys. And you can feel how it weighs on everybody, because it weighs on everyone who saw it. Certainly nobody more than the people who play the game, and by extension the people on the sidelines at the time.
the sports world on Monday night ran the gamut of tribalism and passion and your intensity for that game, for the game of football, to then, okay, there's the human side, there's the humanity. Because you went from that stadium, collectively, Bills and Bengals fans chanting F the Chiefs, and the full F word.
Yeah.
Chanting together, Bills fans, Bengals fans, in the shaking hands meme, in the Spider-Man meme of, hey, the enemy of our enemy is our friend.
Yep.
Together chanting F the Chiefs, which is kind of glorious in that they're
fun.
Playing each other, but they're also thinking about the Chiefs.
You. Yeah.
And the Chiefs are at home going, well, what did we do?
Yeah.
It's not our fault. I mean, Bengals, you beat us last year. What are you doing? So you go from that there's that sort of that cloak that you wrap yourself in, and of being a football fan, and you can be pretty vulgar.
Yes.
As we saw that with McCullers returning to Texas Tech the other night. But in that stadium, you go from that to, oh crap, oh no.
The Chiefs had the arrowhead lit up in blue, and the number 3 up on the jumbotron and everything. And out of a little bit of a morbid curiosity, I just kind of checked the replies, and I didn't see anybody doing the predictable some of the real fringes of fandom of why are we lighting our stadium up in blue? It was mostly people asking, being like, hey, Union Station should do this too, and that cool. Kind of I know it's a small thing, but people changing their avatars to a heart that's a half Chiefs logo and half a Bills logo. Imagine that. Now, this isn't a college rivalry or whatever, but this is the most fun competition in sports, and here at least. And in no time at all, we all went, oh no, this is a totally different category of humanity, of sport, of competition, of all of this. And it's been cool to see this at least be an opportunity for everyone to be on the same page on something.
I've only seen a couple of sort of tweets that are just I'm not sure that you really get it, and it's really outside of Skip Bayless. I know that people have talked about that, but there was one that was getting a lot of attention that a Bills fan was talking about how callous Joe Burrow is, that all the stuff is going on, and look at Burrow warming up on the sideline. And this was tweeted yesterday. Yeah, it wasn't in real time. Tweeted yesterday oh, Joe Burrow's this. Look at him warming up on the sideline. Didn't even care. All right, well, Stephon Diggs was doing that. All right, get out of here.
Right.
But the one that would have more of a reach. And we've talked about the clown that he showed himself to be this summer with the Chiefs aren't going to make the playoffs and this and that. But Bart Scott saying that T. Higgins was dirty on that play.
Yeah.
Bart Scott saying that T. Higgins has blame in this because of how he then went to hit. We haven't even talked about that the clown take of literally the only person I've seen that said, well, T. Higgins, I mean, he deserves some blame in this, and how he lowered his head and shoulder into Damar Hamlin. And we see that happen with offensive players all the time that are coming after the defensive players. And he went right underneath the chin of Damar Hamlin. And, that's not right. And wow. Okay. So at least there are some people revealing the mask to show the clown makeup on their face. And that's outside of just saying, I don't think the Chiefs are going to make the playoffs. Okay, that's fine.
Right. But it also, that in one part demands a lack of understanding of just what most likely was to have happened there from a logical medical standpoint. There's a lot we don't know still, though, so I can't claim the answer. But it's a revelation not just of the clown makeup, as you said, but we also on the other side saw a lot of people pull off their sports mask and reveal a human being under there.
That's exactly right.
And that was one of the other things that I did find heartening, and I have found heartening over these few weeks, is that generally speaking, and certainly the crew that was forced into action on ESPN on Monday, they were put in a terrible spot, and they were asked to figure out what to say about this. And the only real requirement that I think most people had was to be a human being capable of empathy and seeing that as a brother, son, father, teammate, whatever. Being able to find the humanity in people throughout sports altogether is a vitally important thing that we completely forget and devalue until it's too late. Because it's way more watchable to get on First Take and say something super demeaning about some wide receiver who dropped the pass, right? It's way easier to say, oh, that dude's a scrub and he should be benched. But then in a moment like what this entire week has been, you need people who have the humanity under there to remember that these are people that not even demand, that just deserve the humanity that we want to extend to ourselves.
So I want to get into the implications of what the decisions are going to be from the NFL. What seems to be the leader in the clubhouse, and that is just declaring it a no contest. What that would mean for this weekend, what it would mean for the Chiefs. I do want to talk in the first segment here before we take a break just for a few minutes. We talked a lot of college basketball yesterday with K-State's huge win, KU going down to Lubbock and snapping a 29-game home winning streak, and what the Big 12 looks like overall. And then we talked just briefly because, Missouri was going to play that night. So they play last night down in Arkansas, and a great start to the game and turning Arkansas over, getting easy buckets, confusing them on offense. The way they were defending and the way they were also scoring, it was pretty beautiful and was a continuation of Illinois and Kentucky. And that was for 10 minutes of that basketball game. And then the final 30 minutes of that basketball game was a court filled with a team that has mostly better players and at home, because that's different than playing Illinois neutral site in Kentucky at home. Then you're on the road, so you've got the crowd behind you. And Missouri is more of, even though Kobe Brown is really good, and we talked about the 30-point back-to-back games, they're more of the whole is greater than the sum of their parts. Arkansas has some good individual players. They had a guy step up off the bench and start knocking down some threes to get them back in the game. Missouri jumped out to the 25-8 lead, and it was like, okay, this is how good is Missouri? I mean, they are pretty damn good. And then the last 30 minutes, Arkansas won 66-43. I think those two teams are, not even I think, a pretty good idea. Those two teams are closer to the final 30 minutes than they are the first 10 minutes. Closer to the 66-43 because Arkansas is a damn good team. And I think Missouri is good. I think they are a tournament team. They should be a tournament team. What seed are they? We'll find out throughout the course of the season. But that Arkansas team is damn good. They're well coached. They stopped turning the ball over. They started taking advantage of open shots. They started grabbing a bunch of rebounds because they're a bigger team, and when Missouri's in a zone, it's tough to get some of those offensive rebounds, and so those things happen. But I think you saw the better team prevail last night in a more dominant fashion when Missouri built a big enough lead that they could sort of hold on for as long as they could hold the rope before it just all sort of fell over. Once Arkansas took the lead, I never thought Missouri would get it back. But I was like, you know what, just watching the game, I'm like, if you told me before the game they lost 74-68 at Arkansas, okay,
all right, cool.
Makes sense. Put up a pretty good showing. Jumping out 25-8 doesn't change my view of last night's game by losing by 8, even though the final was a 23-point margin in the final 30 minutes of that game. Losing by 8, going there, playing the way they did. At this point in the season, perfectly fine. But Dennis Gates has done a really, really good job. We talked about Jerome Tang and how good of a job he's doing, and what KU and Bill Self and DeJuan Harris and others, Grady Dick and Jalen Wilson and McCullers and other guys stepping up and KJ Adams, all of that stuff. So we've discussed those things. And my takeaway last night is even in a loss is it's further evidence that the three local schools, I believe, we know one for sure, but the other two now feel like they are in a small sample size and very early into the book being written, are in good hands, and the programs are going to be healthier and excitement behind it. That the Vanderbilt game for Mizzou is already sold out on Saturday at 11 o'clock on CBS. So there is clearly excitement revving up behind that program, and we know what the Octagon of Doom can be when Kansas State is rolling and playing like that these three local schools, I'm hoping, are on the beginning of a run of health in terms of the program and excitement and passion behind all three, and not, hey, KU's awesome, Bruce Weber's got to go.
Yeah.
Konzo Martin's got to go. Like, the only thing I want to talk about with Missouri is who the next coach is. Bruce Weber, the only thing we need to talk about with K-State is, are they going to move on from him? KU, do they win the national championship? Let's discuss the individual plays, what Bill Self's doing at the end of the game, what are these matchups? We start doing that with the other teams, and it's awesome. So feel really good about that, even in a loss last night from Mizzou, because last year they would have lost that game by 40.
I would just say Dennis Gates at this point has now tumbled all the way to maybe second, my coach of the year sort of power rankings right now. Big win for Jerome Tang last night.
I agree with that.
Got to wonder if his seat's warming up at all.
Yes. So there you go. 913-3-810-810. Yeah, I guess they lost by 6. I keep saying 8. I don't know why, but they lost by 6.
I've been looking at the score the whole time, and never once did I do the math in my head.
Yeah,
so,
no, I'm just sitting there like, oh, they lost by 8. I should have looked at the score.
I'll try to correct you on names when I catch them and like just bad takes in general, but when I have to correct you on math, the show's really lost its true north.
I see that because the tweet comes in from Rob. We met him at
88.
88, that's right. He said the line was Mizzou plus 7.
Oof.
I assure you, Mizzou did not lose by 8 with the sunglasses on. Because he had
okay, good for Rob.
Mizzou plus 7 because they lost by 6. So that was his point. Was he had the smiley face with the sunglasses on? I assure you, they didn't lose by 8. It was Mizzou plus 7.
God, they're
Got
getting
them
those
points.
lines.
Got them
my
points.
goodness.
I tell you what, Vegas they get those lines right all the time until they don't. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. I want to talk about the implications of what the decisions might be for the NFL this weekend. And also, we'll get into at some point today, because we got a lot of time with no sports or leisure today in the 1 o'clock hour and no Chiefs press conferences early at 11:45 into noon. So we got a lot of time to discuss different things. That press conference coming up at 1 o'clock. Want to get into Chris Jones and the conversation around him, how dominant he's been, and moving forward with that. And even a look ahead to even a couple of years from now, as we know that there's still a lot of games, or hopefully a lot of games to be played. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. More Zone next.
Want to see more of The Zone? Watch the show live on the Sports Radio 810 WHB Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Twitch. The Zone with Jason Anderson.
And I'm going to be doing some deep lunges.
Yeah, it won't be
down
distracting at all.
And back up. That's right.
Won't be distracting at all.
Make that booty pop.
Weekdays from 10 to 2 on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
All right, we continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Jason Anderson with you, Josh Brisco, and Beards. We talk about what the league now can do moving forward as decisions that are there that there's no such thing as, at least in this situation, there's no such thing as what will be fair to all parties involved. There isn't. Even if you were to make some sort of decisions and it'd be like, okay, well, the Ravens are saying, well, now we can't win the division. So if you then cancel this game and you go by winning percentage, and if the Ravens win on Sunday, the Bengals still win the division, even losing twice to the Ravens. Now, there are parts of me that feel bad and don't kind of feel bad, but it's also just my own opinion on what I think was going to happen in that game on Monday night. I think the Bengals were going to win, and I think the Bengals were going to win, not necessarily comfortably, but I think by a couple scores when it was all said and done in the fourth quarter. I think the Bengals were going to lead by a couple scores in the fourth quarter. The Bills may have scored late to make it a one-score game, but I think the Bengals right now are the better team. They were playing at home, and there was a ton of motivation in that game as the way that they're playing right now. That's just me. Everything could have changed. You never know, because that's why you go and play the game. But there is no equitable decision by the NFL. Adam Schefter on ESPN about 20 minutes ago gave the report as to what he's hearing, but also an educated guess as to what he's hearing, and then coming to some sort of what is an expected conclusion. Here's Adam Schefter. It's about 2 minutes long, him talking about what the decision might be over the next 24, 48 hours for the NFL.
Number one, I don't think an educated guess that they're going to wind up replaying that Bills-Bengals game from Monday night. As somebody said to me this past week, the game is bad mojo. It's time to leave it behind, move forward, not back. And I don't believe the league, under most circumstances, is going to wind up replaying that game. Now we get into the fact, okay, well, how does the league handle this? And there are many ideas that the league is kicking around, and they now can go into overdrive knowing that doctors feel encouraged about Damar Hamlin and where he's at in his recovery a few days after the tragic circumstances of Monday night. So when we go inside headquarters at Park Avenue in New York City, let me present a couple of scenarios that I think are under consideration and discussion, and I think they're a little bit different than a lot of people would have thought. One of them comes compliments of our Matthew Hasselbeck, and I want to credit him who came up with this idea, and I'm going to read it to you because he texted it to me yesterday, and I know the league has thought about this one. He said, you call the Bengals-Bills a tie. The number one seed gets the choice of home field throughout the playoffs or the bye. The number two seed gets whatever isn't chosen. So either a bye or home field advantage. That would be one scenario that I believe the league has talked about. The other one that I think might be even more viable and more discussed and might be the one that the league enacts before Saturday's game is this. If there is an AFC championship game in the end that involves teams that don't have the same amount of games played, where Monday night's non-result factors into who gets home field advantage, here's what I think the league would do. I think the league would say, we're not going to have any home field advantage this year. We're going to play the conference championship game on a neutral site. And so if it involves Kansas City or Buffalo or Cincinnati, then it...
So, a couple of things there. I'll restate. no decision here is going to be fair or okay, that's perfect. They nailed it. All right, there's going to be pushback no matter what. The part about his expectation, educated guess, is that this will be viewed a no contest. They will not continue the game, and it'll just be canceled, and they will have only played 16 games. The rest of the league will play 17, and they will go by winning percentage to seed, which would mean that the Chiefs win on Saturday. They are the number 1 seed. No matter what else happens this weekend, because they would have one extra win, and the Bills cannot get to 14 wins. So that would certainly benefit the Chiefs if they were to win, to get the 1 seed and not have the Bills and the Bengals go and play. Now you could take it and there it is, the seeding, and we run the playoffs the same way we would in every other year. It's just there's one game missing for Bills and Bengals. It happens. The two things that are floated out there by Adam Schefter that apparently the league is talking about. One, Tim Hasselback saying the number 1 seed, which would be the Chiefs if they win, get the choice between the bye or home field advantage throughout the playoffs. Or you seed it, and if the 1 and the 2 seed play, you go to a neutral site. Okay.
That one, real quick, just because I'm trying to juggle all these. I don't know why you would have to give up home field advantage if the only time it would even be relevant would be in a 1-2 AFC Championship game, right? I guess it would say, if we get an AFC Championship game, we're guaranteeing it at Arrowhead as opposed to it being in, let's say, Arizona, I guess, since that's what Super Bowl's going to be. I hope it's not Arizona because their grass is bad. That's neither here nor there.
I don't think they can make a decision on what happens for home field advantage or the AFC Championship game until the games have been played. Because you can't come out and say, well, the 1 and the 2 in the AFC, if they play each other, it's going to be a neutral site. And then the Bills lose to the Patriots and the Chiefs are the 1, then you can't go, well, no, we already made the decision. Well, no, but the Chiefs earned full home field advantage by virtue of record that even if the game was played, they still can't catch the Chiefs in the 1 seed if they lose to the Patriots. So I don't think you can make a definitive statement of, okay, well, the 1 seed is going to get the choice between bye or home field advantage. The 2 seed will get the choice that they did not choose, again, if the Bills lose to the Patriots on Sunday. Because the Chiefs would have earned, if they beat the Raiders, would have earned the home field advantage. It would be different if the Bills beat the Patriots and the Chiefs win, and you're talking about, okay, the Bills, they had a chance to beat the Bengals and they would have home field advantage. They did not. It's not fair to them. Here's a way that we can try to fix it. Okay, Bengals, I'm sorry. You're the 3 seed. You could have beaten the Bills. I think they would have. But you're the 3 seed. You're not a part of this discussion. You win the division. Sorry, Ravens. If Baltimore were to win on Sunday, sorry, Baltimore. You beat them twice. You still are a game behind or a half game behind. Sorry, you don't win the division. You can't win the division. So the bye or home field advantage. So if you're the 1 seed and you choose home field advantage, you then play the first weekend, I guess, against the 7. And the 2 seed would have a bye, and then it would go back to seeding of that. Or if you choose the bye, you would then play the 2 seed in their stadium, even though it would be seeding everything else.
If you get the AFC Championship
Unless
game,
it's the 3 seed, then you get the home. Then you get the home game there.
Right, I guess you would get to play the 3 seed at home if the 3 seed got to the AFC Championship game.
There's no way you could then go, no matter what the other you can't have the AFC Championship game at home if you're the 1 seed and you chose the bye if Buffalo ends up losing, if they're the 2 seed. No. That's not how it would work in a regular playoffs, and it's not even how it would work here as well. You can only make that the 1 or the 2 because that team is even further down in the seed list. It has to just be the 1 and the 2. That's it.
I think
if the 1 and the 2 meet in the AFC Championship game and they choose the neutral site option, then it goes to a neutral site. If the 1 and the 3 meet in the AFC Championship game, well, then tough cookies. It's at the 1 seed's home spot, whoever the 1 seed ends up being. I will say, though, I don't know what the right way of going about it is. But I was thinking about this morning and even last night when they were talking about just a no contest and it being winning percentage and that the Chiefs win and they clinch the 1 seed. It does feel kind of dirty.
Super dirty,
For the Chiefs to get the 1 seed when they lost to both the Bills and the Bengals, and they don't have a chance to get the 1 seed, and the team that did not have to play in that game and also lost to both of those teams by virtue of having a half-game lead in winning percentage would then get the 1 seed, the bye, not have to face the Bills and the Bengals, because we've talked about the 1 seed is so significant this year in the AFC. It feels dirty, but there's really no, as I said, equitable way of going about it.
And there is a difference between saying this feels dirty and the Chiefs should do something different. All the Chiefs can do right now reasonably is handle their business and be exactly as giving as they were yesterday when they're talking about the Bills. And, if you come out and you go, yeah, no, this is great, we got the 1 seed now, then you'll get every response you get to that will be justified. But the posture the Chiefs have taken so far has been pitch perfect, the best you can do for a group of guys. It certainly seems rattled the same way that everyone seems to be from that. But if you're the Chiefs, all you can do is say, we're going to go try to beat the Raiders, and then whatever the NFL tells us our options are, that's what we'll do. Because it doesn't get any easier if the Chiefs start trying, like, well, what if we just didn't play the Raiders, and could we... The dominoes are going to keep falling. More moving parts is just going to mean more complications. All the Chiefs can do is beat the Raiders and let the NFL tell them what their options are. But I also think you can say that and totally, honestly, freely admit it all feels terrible just because of the surrounding circumstances of all of it. If the Bengals would have won that game and the Chiefs would have won the 1 seed, no one would have apologized about them losing head-to-head to the Bengals and the Bills. But the circumstances are just so jarring and have been so terrible that of course you can feel sick to your stomach about all of it, and all the Chiefs can do is keep playing the games that are on their schedule right now.
I think what the NFL can do if they want to make a decision before the games, they say, if they're not going to play the game, if we decided we're not going to make that game up, it's going to be winning percentage. But we've also decided that, and they would choose between option 1 or 2, the bye or the home field and then the neutral site. We've also decided that the 1 and the 2 seed, if they match up, will be in a neutral site. That's option 1. Option 2 is if the Bills lose this weekend and the Chiefs win, there is no mixture to this.
Matter.
We're just going and playing the playoffs like we would in any other year. Those are the 2 things that can happen. So prepare yourself. If the Bills beat the Patriots and Chiefs beat the Raiders, the 1 and 2 seed matching up will be at a neutral site. This is the neutral site, blah, blah, blah. If the Bills lose to the Patriots, Chiefs beat the Raiders, everything goes back to normal, the way that it is, and we play the playoffs moving forward with 1 less game by the Bills and Bengals. That's the only way I think they can make an announcement before the games as to what the full-on picture would look like if they don't play that game.
It'll look like a math problem. It's going to be if this, then this. It's like coding, and I think that's the only way you can do it right now.
Kind of like playoff scenarios, though.
It's going to have to be like
this
that.
happens, this happens, this happens. I mean, the Bengals can clinch the 2 seed this weekend if they beat the Ravens and the Bills lose to the Patriots. So then now the Bills, by virtue of a strength of victory tiebreaker, would fall down to the 3 seed without having a chance to play the Bengals, which, again, I think the Bengals won't beat them, so therefore I think that probably is the right way to go. But a lot of this comes down to Bills, Pats, Chiefs, Raiders, and we'll know about the Chiefs, Raiders when Sunday games kick off at noon. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. More Zone next.
Follow the show on Twitter at J810Anderson, at JB Brisco, at Beards McFly, and at Sports Radio 810. The Zone with Jason Anderson.
913-912-4810. Not going to read that text because you're a jerk.
Weekdays from 10 to 2 on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
All right, we'll talk to Ken Swanson coming up next. Couple of texts coming in. 913-912-4810. It will only feel wrong if the Bills beat the Pats. And the best option for the NFL is to have them play this game next week. Take away the bye week between the Super Bowl. Seems fair. Text says, in 5 years, are people going to say, oh, yeah, remember when the Chiefs won the Super Bowl? That shouldn't count. That was the year they got a good seed because that guy had a heart attack.
That'll happen.
It will 100% happen. Yes. I mean, people are still saying that if Jimmy Garoppolo doesn't overthrow Emmanuel Sanders, the 49ers win that game.
Never underestimate people's ability to be crappy in retrospect.
Yep. 913-912-4810. Text says, Bengals Bills a tie. No loss, no win. I think tie and no contest would all equal the same thing because then it would go by winning percentage and the Chiefs would get the one, so on and so forth. Ken Swanson next.
Your crew. The Zone with Jason Anderson.
You might not be able to tell by the quality of the radio show, but I'm great.
Weekdays from 10 to 2 on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
All right, we'll continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Chiefs press conference is coming up at 1 o'clock today, so there is no sports or leisure today. Chiefs press conferences move back to post-practice today, usually pre-practice, but post-practice today. Coordinators and TBD. We'll find out. Well, when it comes to the Chiefs, TBD might actually be a player since MVS and CEH and JSS.
JJSS?
J squared S squared.
LDT, I know he's not around anymore, but he was a real big three initial guy.
That's exactly right. Chiefs like those. So that comes up at 1 o'clock. 913-912-4810. Kent Swanson, KC Sports Network, KC Laboratory Podcast, KCSN.substack.com. Joining us here in the zone. Kent, what's up, man? How are you, sir?
Happy New Year to you and only you sitting in that studio right now.
Cool. I'm just going to go bleep myself.
Thank you, Kent. I appreciate that. That's the right tact. It's the right way of going about it.
Appreciate it, man.
100%. 100%. Yes. Kent Swanson, one of the best individuals I know. Joining us.
Pretty low on my list.
And one hell of a teammate, too. I'll say that. I don't know about
Sounds
you guys.
like, yeah, well, so Kent, on the teammate front, earlier we were talking about your illustrious holding career at Mid-American Nazarene University, and I was just curious if at any point your family ever tried to blackmail the head coach, try to get you more playing time.
It didn't work. The coaching staff was willing to live with the consequences. That's about how my career went as a quarterback. So
I'd rather be fired than play your son. Bring it. Ken Swanson is our guest, former quarterback at Mid-American Nazarene and All-American holder, I think is the...
That's all NAIA at least, right?
Term
yeah,
for...
Some would say all world.
Yeah. That's a good point.
That's a good point. It's a curse, really.
Yeah, because who is in France right now that's a better holder than you? So why do we have to act like it's just NII or even in this country?
Kent Swanson, softest hands in the game. I've often said that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. He was Kent Soft Hand Swanson. That's what people called him. All right, so news coming down within the last couple of hours, and really last night when we saw the conversation around the NFL declaring a no contest between Bills and Bengals, or at least that is what seems to be the leader in the clubhouse, the expectation that the NFL, the league office, will do. And then from that point forward, it will be seeding based on winning percentage, which means the Chiefs win against the Raiders. They are the 1 seed. And now we're hearing, like in the last hour, Adam Schefter going on ESPN and saying that what he's hearing and his educated guess is that they are going to declare this a no contest, and then there will be 2 choices that the NFL may give to the teams, and that is the number 1 seed will get the choice between the first-round bye or home field advantage. If you choose home field, you would then play in the first round against the 7 seed instead of the 2. The 2 seed would get the bye, but you would get to play at home in the AFC Championship game, or you would get the bye, and if you face off against the 2, you would have to go to their stadium, which would be Buffalo. Or the NFL may go neutral site for the championship game. The 1 seed still gets the bye. The seeding is the same thing, but the championship game, if it's 1 versus 2, played at a neutral site. What's your reaction to, first, hearing that the expectation is that it's going to be a no contest, and 2, if these are viable options that the NFL is really considering to go through with moving forward in the playoffs?
I'm glad they're making that game a no contest. Just I think for the sake of the players. By all indications, it seems like, emotionally that would be a difficult game for them to try to navigate. So honestly, I'm totally fine with them and kind of in some ways glad, if that's what the players want, that this game is getting no contest. But I mean, the NFL has got an impossible situation to navigate now, and so I mean, there's a variety of things and options that you can throw out there. And I mean, the Chiefs lost to the Bengals and Bills. So, I don't think the Chiefs, from a Chiefs perspective, I don't know if you really can complain about anything right now. But it's an impossible situation for them to navigate. I don't hate the idea of, giving some incentive to the 2 seed that winds up, whatever the 2 seed is. I don't know if that's a terrible idea, honestly, just to, kind of help, mitigate this situation a little bit.
Unless, of course, Buffalo loses to the Patriots and the Chiefs beat the Raiders, then it all should be moot, and then the Chiefs are the 1 seed, and then the 2 and the 3 can figure that out between themselves. And if the NFL wants to say, neutral site for the Bills and Bengals if they play, that's fine, but the Chiefs would have rightfully earned the number 1 seed if they win and the Bills lose. So all of it then should be thrown out the window.
I think that's fair too. I don't know when the decisions are going to come down. Are they going to wait for the Chiefs to play their game and kind of get some, get an understanding of where they're at with all that? That might be a decent idea too. I don't know. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting when some of these decisions ultimately come down as well.
It should pass along, too, in case people are just joining us, that the news on Damar Hamlin seems to be really good news, that he has made, quote, remarkable improvement. And Hamlin's agent tells the Associated Press that Hamlin was awake and he's able to grip the hands of family members. So that is good news. That the Bills say also he appears to be neurologically intact. Lungs continue to heal. So it is all positive steps in the right direction for Damar Hamlin, which could also be news of this, positive steps in the right direction for the mental and emotional side of the players across the league that are playing in the games coming up this weekend. Let's say the NFL decides that, okay, let's play the scenario and game it out, that the Chiefs beat the Raiders and the Bills win against the Patriots, and it's a no contest between Bills and Bengals. Chiefs would be the 1. Bills would be the 2 by virtue of not playing an extra game. And the NFL says, all right, we've decided the number 1 seed, you get the choice, bye week or home field advantage. Number 2, you get to whatever's left over. If you're the Chiefs, what do you choose? Bye week or home field advantage?
You take the bye week 10 out of 10 times.
Absolutely, 100%.
There's no doubt. Look, yes, you would get an advantage for the 3 games that you would be playing potentially at Arrowhead if everything goes as planned, but you're playing 3 games. You aren't guaranteed a victory, especially in the history of this franchise. I know it's not necessarily been with Mahomes, but we've seen some pretty epic upsets from this franchise in the past. You guarantee a victory and you guarantee a week to get healthy, and then you let the cards fall where they may the next 2 weeks. So you only have 2 weeks to get to the Super Bowl. You have to take the bye. The only reason I could see the Chiefs not taking the bye is revenue. That's the only upside to taking the other side of that coin is revenue. And I would hope the way the Chiefs are wired and the success they've had and the desire to continue to win championships, that they would make the decision to take the advantage towards a championship rather than the revenue.
I'd imagine, I'm picturing in my mind, if you can, close your eyes and set the scene here. Andy Reid is in his office preparing for the playoffs or getting ready for whatever, and the NFL has given the Chiefs the choice, home field or the bye. And Mark Donovan's in his office talking about the revenue by getting the extra game at home and playing that weekend as opposed to getting the week off and resting. I'm imagining Andy Reid like an Italian grandmother chasing him out with a long Italian piece of bread, swiping at him to get out of here, it's not ready yet.
Smacking with the baguette.
Smacking him with the baguette. It's not ready yet. Just Mark Donovan just popping him on the back of the head as Mark Donovan is running out of the room. That's what I'm imagining if the Chiefs were
He's
to...
throwing a cheeseburger at him, guys.
probably right
there.
Yeah, that's a good point.
But that's not as good as him chasing him out of a room, hitting him with a baguette. It's not ready yet! That's what I'm imagining if the Chiefs were to approach Andy Reid and say, what do you think about playing an extra game for the revenue?
I would be stunned if Clark Hunt did choose. I do believe he'll actually, if he presented the option, he would do the appropriate thing and take the bye week. I don't know if Mike Brown in Cincinnati would.
That's exactly right.
Boy, that's a good point.
If this is the Browns or Raiders, I wonder if the answer is different. Those are the 2 teams I'd think of.
I think the Bengals.
Yeah, you're right.
That's it. Those cash poor teams, they'd be thinking long and hard about that.
Where do you think the neutral site would be played then? We came up with an idea of maybe Indianapolis, neutral site. The weather doesn't matter, right in between the two.
Chiefs fans are really enjoying the idea of a Chiefs playoff game in Indianapolis, by the way, since I tweeted that out. My mentions have been mostly, oh, God, please no.
But the Colts won't be there. Or, Kent, how about this? Enabled to incorporate all the teams and the Brown family. Chiefs and Bills AFC Championship in Cincinnati. So that town still gets to host an AFC Championship game, right? Don't worry.
Yeah.
You guys get to host an AFC Championship game, Bills and Chiefs in Cincinnati. Everybody wins.
It's the revenue made good for Mike Brown in Cincinnati. I think here's a thought. The Pro Bowl is in Las Vegas the week after the championship game.
Interesting. Okay, that's a good point. Interesting.
Okay. And selfishly, and I'm not trying to diminish what's happened because we're dealing with a lot of very difficult circumstances. I'll be in Vegas for the East-West Shrine Bowl that week anyway. So if that were to happen, I would prefer it to be in Vegas, and it makes sense because the players, whatever teams lose, can just go hang out in Vegas the week after. Because if it's Bills Chiefs or whatever, I mean, the loser of that game, they can just be present for all the Pro Bowl activities anyway. They'll be right there for it. So I don't know. I've heard I've heard worse ideas.
No, that's a good thought. I like that one. And it's longer for the Bills to travel, so that would be advantage. I mean, it's a charter flight. Oh, it's an extra hour on a charter flight. Well, how could they possibly adjust? Ken Swanson is our guest. So I wanted to ask you just in general, heading into the postseason, as final game of the year, we'll see what happens against the Raiders. I'm hoping they come out and play well, but what is the importance in your mind, if at all, of the Chiefs playing a sound, solid, good football game on Saturday against the Raiders? Obviously win, but assuming a win, but how they win, how important is that to you heading into the postseason for this team?
Style points against the Raiders at this point, I don't think mean much of anything to me, if I'm being honest. Just because, one, this has been such a difficult week for the NFL community. So, I mean, anything's on the table as far as how teams and the rest of the league respond. You can kind of see how it's affected people in such a big way beyond just the two teams that were sitting there on the field. A lot of people facing the realities and the mortality and what comes with this game. So I don't know if I need style points this week when I'm watching the Chiefs. We've seen the elements required to win a Super Bowl on this team. It's just a matter if they can put them all together. And I don't really care if they put it all together against the Las Vegas Raiders, who are starting Jarrett Stidham. I know he played well last week, but they're starting Jarrett Stidham. Just get out of there with a win so you can have a little bit of potential control over your situation here when it comes to, how the playoff seedings and all that stuff is concerned. So I genuinely don't care about style points. I just want to see this team get a win and potentially, get that bye, get healthy, get ready to go. Because I think, they've showed what they're going to be capable of doing when they are unloading the clip offensively, when, Andy's got the A+ call sheet. So just get to the playoffs and get there healthy and get there with one extra win in Week 18.
Maybe it's maybe the two terms are synonymous with each other, but you say style points. If I changed it to clean points, not even just points in the literal definition, but style points as opposed to, do they have to win in going away and dominant fashion, or just simply look like they played a clean game?
It's still it's just kind of a survive and advance for me personally. Obviously you don't, we're going to sit there, we're going to have conversations about the things that bring concern. But I mean, I think a lot of how this team has played over the last 17 months, we know the hows. I mean, we know how this team will lose. I don't know if adding another game to the sample size is going to confirm or deny any of those things. There's special teams issues. There's turnover issues. They have trouble turning the ball over. They've had a hard time generating pass rush and generating pressure against good football teams. I don't know how many of those questions get answered this week. So for me, it's still, clean game, that'd be great. But as long as they get out of there healthy, I think that's all I can really ask for and all I really care about, because I think the version of the Chiefs that you see in the playoffs is going to be one that has a much more diverse, elaborate call sheet by Andy Reid, one that's going to probably break some tendencies defensively, So I don't know. I think it's still just whatever the case, just get a win and get out of there healthy. That's really all I care about for this football team this week.
That's a good point. I doubt some of the things that are going to be going on against the Raiders offensively and maybe even defensively from Spagnuolo are what you'll see in game number 1, whether that be next week or in 2 weeks in the divisional round against whichever opponent they go up against. That'll be quite different than whatever they may have a game plan for the Raiders coming up this weekend. And also there is some perspective to it. And I know we talk about how they win and whether it's style points or the means justifying the ends being that there's a win, but the means to get there, is that more important than them winning some of these games? Their 3 losses on the season are by a total of 10 points, and 2 of them were on the road. One of them, obviously, is the head-scratcher in the Colts, but another one, a 3-point loss on the road to the Cincinnati Bengals, is not a devastating result. And losing by 4 at home to the Bills is not a devastating result when you did have a lead. You had a lead in both of those games, but a bounce of a football, a play here or there, can be the deciding factor. They're not getting blown out at any games. They may not be blowing teams out, but if we talk about that, well, they lost to the Bills and the Bengals. They did. They did. 1 at home and 1 on the road by a total of 7 points. Is that really something to panic about and say, well, this team is doomed and they have so many issues that it's going to cost them, and we're going to be talking in a couple, 3 weeks that this is why they're not playing anymore?
It's so funny, too, when I look at this team. It's like, a bad performance by an NFL team typically means a loss. And here we are, Patrick Mahomes has the second best record he's accumulated in a season in 16 games. I mean, we'll look at the 16-game sample size.
Yeah.
They won 13 football games. They'd only done that once since Patrick Mahomes got here, in a year where there's a lot of turnover. There's a lot of changes to this organization. It's just it speaks to, like, where we're at as followers of this football team, and it speaks to just, it speaks to this program. You talked about the 2 best teams in the AFC. Yes, the Chiefs lost, but they were right there. They were right there with them. And it's quote unquote down year a little bit for this football team too. So, I mean, everything you want is still in front of this football team. And I think if Chiefs fans look back on, if you told them in April they'd be 13-3 heading into Week 18 with the 1 seed in sight, you would sign up for that immediately. I mean, the win total for this team is 10.5 in Vegas. So, I mean, yeah, you feel good about where this team is at.
The Chiefs and Andy Reid, so they've got a chance this weekend to go 6-0 against the division, which is remarkable considering where we were 5 months ago. That if they go 6-0, Andy Reid has gone 6-0 versus the AFC West twice. 2016 they went 6-0. 2019 they went 6-0. And this year they've got a chance to go 6-0. They went 4-2 in 2020, and last year they went 5-1 against the division. But 6-0 is pretty incredible to think about with how good this division was supposed to be, and it continues to show the dominance that the Chiefs have. So we talk about specifically the Raiders this weekend. Now let's look ahead to the playoffs, since we know the Chiefs are going to be playing. Hopefully not the first weekend, but we'll find out. Special teams has been a conversation for a while now, and it came up yet again this week with the dropped snap and then the tipped field goal attempt by the offensive line, but holds and whether that's in Tommy Townsend's head or not. Do you have any interest in a change being made at holder this late in the season? If it were to be, say, Dustin Colquitt, that they just went out and called and said, all right, we're not messing around, Dustin. Come on in here. Sorry, Tommy, you're the punter. They got to figure out who that extra roster spot is that somebody would have to be, released. But any interest in that moving forward with the Chiefs if they just said, Dustin, get on in here, let's hold?
I mean, at this point, I think the Chiefs and Andy Reid have been willing to let things ride out through the course of a season. I think that's any side of the football. Andy Reid's willing to put the game in the hands of his defense when you've got the best player in the world. And I think the decision-making changes a little bit when it's a do-or-die kind of situation, right? So I think, Andy Reid continued to let this situation play itself out. Dave Tobas continued to let this situation play out the same way that, this team has, kind of let that happen a lot of times over the course of as they, try to build confidence and stuff with this team over the course of the season. But now, it's that time of year where you don't have margin for error. Anything's on the table. If Harrison Butker is not confident that ball is going to be where it's supposed to be consistently, then you have to have that conversation, because a bad hold, a bad snap can affect the mentality of a kicker. If the kicker is approaching the football thinking that he's going to have to make a small adjustment at the point of contact to try to account for something, some of the variables that present themselves in that operation, you might have to go make drastic measures. I don't know if it's Dustin Colquitt. Maybe it's Dustin Colquitt. I don't know. That'd be kind of wild. But I think to ensure that you've got confidence from your kicker, who you're going to need in these close football games, you might have to do something drastic. I mean, I know Chad Henney's held in the past. Who knows? I mean, maybe it's him. I don't know. But anything's on the table. It would be pretty drastic to burn a roster spot on just a holder. And if that's the case, I am available.
As we said, all-world holder Kent Swanson is our guest. KC Sports Network, KC Laboratory Podcast, and All-American at Mid-American Nazarene, holding for 3 years running. 3-time all-world holder at Mid-American Nazarene.
He was out of there a little bit before I got there. They were still talking about, man, that one holder with the great hair, which I don't think he had at the time, but it was, as absence makes the heart grow fonder. They still talk about Canada menu.
It's I've never seen until Mid-American Nazarene did that. I've never seen a statue for a holder outside.
I know, but
the
he
guy
deserved
in the holding position with the ball on the turf, holding it with the hand that just spun it.
Yeah, the motion to it is incredible. I mean, real OVO, Olathe's very own, right here.
That's it's pretty amazing.
So embarrassing.
Is it though?
No.
Kent Swanson is there.
Hey, Kent. You know how many college football games Jason and I appeared in combined? 0.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. But how many catches did you have in high school there, Kent? Well, you're like, I was throwing the ball.
I've seen, yeah, Jason. I would have found you. I would have found you a couple more times than that one.
Appreciate it.
That one catch.
Thank you. But
I would have been such a good fullback for your offense, man. I would have been out there living and dying for you.
No, but we're missing this part. You two would have been 2/3 of the operation.
Wow, you're right.
Josh is a long snapper, and you're a holder.
Okay, so we got to make this happen at some point. Jason can kick, and we're gonna see if we can bring this together.
What if we did a tutorial for the Chiefs and Dave Tobe on how it's done? That you get down, you're like, all right, James, if you're watching this is what you need to be doing.
3.5 rotations, James.
Here's what you're looking for. This is the right technique, whether you're doing it, James, or not. But this is what you should be doing. And then the camera pans to Kent, and Kent's going, all right, Tommy. So if I were you,
shot like an early 2000s baseball instructional, like VHS, late 90s even. We can make this happen, I think.
And then it would pan to me, and I'd be Harrison Butker, and I would go, well, as long as those two got their bleep together, I'm fine.
I'm fine.
I'm good. It's those two. They're the issue. And now I have back spasms because I've been carrying these guys all year. So missing practice now. Now it's resulting in injuries. It's ridiculous. Kent Swanson is our guest. But here's the concern that comes in, and what worries people, myself included, is those 2 losses to the 2 teams in the AFC, not the Colts, but the Bills and Bengals. 4 points and 3 points, and Butker missed a field goal in both. Mm-hmm. Now, I think they still lose the Bengals game if he makes that field goal at the end, because I think that the Bengals go down and they kick a field goal and McPherson makes it. So whether that matters or not, but still, he went in those games combined 3 for 5 in the Bills and Bengals game, and they lost by a total of 7 points. That's the scary part, right? Is you get into the postseason and every point matters. And I don't want to imagine it, but I can certainly see the Chiefs against whatever opponent, Bills or Bengals or whatever, drive down the field, score a touchdown on the opening drive, feeling good, miss the extra point, and people go, oh no, wind out of the sails. That's certainly concerning. So
it should. I mean, you should be. I mean, I think the lack of confidence in the operation is pretty obvious with Harrison Butker, and the operation itself has not been particularly good. And I think James Winchester is a very good long snapper, but like he wasn't perfect this week either. I mean, the snap that Tommy Townsend dropped was was inside. It was to his right and inside. So I mean, you've had some issues with both. And Townsend, I don't know if he's been consistent enough to account for a bunch of variables with the snap. So it's not a good problem to have in January. We always talk about, the phrase everyone talks about, hey, playing in when it comes January. Well, it's January, guys, and the playoffs start next week. So, again, all options on the table. If they need to figure out something with that operation beforehand, you might want to do it. I mean, I get it if you do it.
Yeah. I brought the perspective of, they've got 3 games that they've lost by a total of 10 points, Bills and Bengals total of 7. But the flip side of that is the number 1 seeds last year went 0 for 2. The Packers lost because their special teams was so bad in that game against the 49ers. The only touchdown the 49ers scored was on a blocked punt. They also blocked a field goal. They lose 13-10 to the 49ers, who had 1 drive. The other 3 points they scored was a kickoff that the 49ers returned into Packer territory, and then they kicked a field goal. So 1 real drive in that game, and they win the game. So the Packers were bad on special teams all year, and then they lost their first game because special teams was atrocious. And then the other number 1 seed lost because they turned the ball over 3 times. And they did a lot of other things really good. Limiting what the Bengals did offensively, limiting the wide receivers, sacking Joe Burrow, pressuring him, getting in his face. But Tannehill threw 3 interceptions. And they lost the game. So special teams and turnovers. That's that's what's scary, is that the number 1 seed last year went 0 for 2. One of them, something that bothered them all year, came to bite them, and the Titans the other one. And those are the 2 things the Chiefs have been worrying about, is turnovers and special teams. So that's the flip side of the, hey, they've got these 3 losses by a small margin. Right, but we have evidence just a year ago that the 2 things that have been issues there have cost teams last year individually.
Yeah, literally the 2 things that we've spent all year talking about are the things that doomed. I think that's pretty normal. Special teams can doom teams, and turnovers can doom teams. I mean, but it just feels like those 2 things have been especially magnified by this program.
Yeah. Ken Swanson is our guest. What do you think happens against the Raiders this weekend?
I think it's an ugly win. I'm not feeling overconfident that it's going to be a clean game, as you were talking about earlier, Jason. I think something like the score we saw last week, like a 27-24 type game, 27-21. I don't think it'll be as nerve-wracking, but I think the Raiders cover. I think they're Chiefs are like 7.5-point favorites, I believe, last time I saw. 9.5-point favorites. Yeah, I think the Raiders will cover that. That.
It's now 9, so we'll see what happens with that game. But I don't want to hear that. I don't want to hear this going to be another. I don't want to sweat through another game that just win. And I also don't want it to be like people going, look, the Chiefs are struggling and they get the 1 seed because they barely beat the Broncos, they barely beat the Texans, they barely beat the Raiders, and they're getting the 1 seed. Not that it matters, because who cares what other people are saying? But it's just for my own anxiety and stress during the game of thinking, can you really blow this opportunity that you can be the 1 seed just by winning against the Raiders? This is what you wanted all year. It came by incredibly difficult circumstances, but this is what you've been fighting for all year, is to have 1 game when you lost to the Bills. You're in a position now, you just win 1 game and you're the home field advantage. You're the number 1 seed. I don't want to sweat through that game, but thanks a lot, Kent. Thank you for predicting exactly what's going to happen, and there's no other way it will be different just because you predicted it.
Hey, look, there's one silver lining. You only have to play one of the Bengals or the Bills, and I think that's also a big factor here. You only got to play one of them. I don't care where you play them. If you can guarantee you have to play one of them, and you only have to play them to get to the Super Bowl. there's been worse ideas out there.
It's like Michael Beasley said, play him in Manhattan and Lawrence or Egypt. I don't care who we play, so we'll beat them wherever. Yeah, the Chiefs can play that game in Egypt as long as it's not against both the Bills and the Bengals, that you only have to play one of them. So we'll see. Kent Swanson, KC Sports Network, KC Laboratory Podcast, kcsn.substack.com. Fantastic there at the website, and one hell of a holder as well. So, Kent, thank you for holding down this this segment with us, bud.
Anytime, guys. Appreciate you.
All right, there's Kent Swanson joining us as we talk some Chiefs, we talk some NFL, we talk around the league and special teams and all of that stuff. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. We'll reset what the news is around the playoffs, around the Bills and Bengals game, whether it's going to be a no contest or trying to figure something else out, and then what the options are for the league to decide the 1, the 2, the 3, where teams are playing, bye week, and all of that stuff. And definitely want to get into a conversation around Chris Jones and how dominant he's been and how long he should be a Chief. We'll continue with more Zone next.
Take the show with you by listening live on 810WHB.com, in the 810 mobile app, or by subscribing to The Zone wherever you get your podcasts. The Zone with Jason Anderson.
Lunch provided by the Wiener Wagon today, so I'm looking forward to that. 11 to 1.
Surrounded by tools and wieners.
That's exactly right. You know what? That's a dream.
Weekdays from 10 to 2 on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
All right, we'll hear from the Chiefs coming up at 1 o'clock. No sports or leisure today. 1 o'clock press conferences for the Chiefs. Dave Tobe, Steve Spagnuolo, Eric Bieniemy, TBD. Find out who that is. Update on Damar Hamlin in that he is awake and is squeezing. He can squeeze his family members' hands. Also appears to be neurologically intact. So those are really good news for Damar Hamlin and the update with that. So remarkable improvement is also the quote that has been shown a number of times. So, quote, still critically ill. He has shown, quote, remarkable improvement. So 913-912-4810 is the text line. A lot of reaction on the text line to what the scenarios may or may not be for the NFL. If, and certainly seems like when they declare this game a no contest between the Bills and the Bengals. I doubt they go with a tie, but it seems like in the next 24, 48 hours before the Chiefs kick off against the Raiders, we'll know if the Bills and Bengals will play that game or if it will be the no contest and we just go into the playoffs. So we'll find out all of that, I think, before the game starts. But what we don't know is what the fallout might be because there are two teams that did not play that game. Adam Schefter, can we play that clip again? This was about, I don't know, maybe an hour and a half ago that he had, maybe an hour ago, whatever it might be. Yeah, so he was on ESPN and said, you know, what he's hearing from the league and the things that are being discussed within the league, if and, again, what seems to be all the momentum to win, they declare this thing a no contest, what the league might be thinking to try to make it as equitable as possible, as, quote, fair as possible. Here's Adam Schefter talking about the things that he's hearing from the league that could be possible if this game is not played.
Number one, I don't think an educated guess that they're going to wind up replaying that Bills-Bengals game from Monday night. As somebody said to me this past week, the game is bad mojo. It's time to leave it behind, move forward, not back. And I don't believe the league, under most circumstances, is going to wind up replaying that game. Now we get into the fact, okay, well, how does the league handle this? And there are many ideas that the league is kicking around, and they now can go into overdrive knowing that doctors feel encouraged about Damar Hamlin and where he's at in his recovery a few days after the tragic circumstances of Monday night. So when we go inside headquarters at Park Avenue in New York City, let me present a couple of scenarios that I think are under consideration and discussion, and I think they're a little bit different than a lot of people would have thought. One of them comes compliments of our Matthew Hasselbeck, and I want to credit him who came up with this idea, and I'm going to read it to you because he texted it to me yesterday, and I know the league has thought about this one. He said, you call the Bengals-Bills a tie. The number one seed gets the choice of home field throughout the playoffs or the bye. The number two seed gets whatever isn't chosen. So either a bye or home field advantage. That would be one scenario that I believe the league has talked about. The other one that I think might be even more viable and more discussed and might be the one that the league enacts before Saturday's game is this. If there is an AFC championship game in the end that involves teams that don't have the same amount of games played, where Monday night's non-result factors into who gets home field advantage, here's what I think the league would do. I think the league would say, we're not going to have any home field advantage this year. We're going to play the conference championship game on a neutral site. And so if it involves Kansas City or Buffalo or Cincinnati.
So the interesting part there is, we were talking about if the Chiefs were to beat the Raiders on Saturday and the Bills were to lose to the Patriots, that none of this really should matter about home field advantage, where the games are being played as it relates to the number 1 seed, because the Chiefs in that matter would have earned the number 1 seed because the Bills lost, so they have a better record simply. But the part that is interesting there when he says that, we had talked about the neutral site, that okay, well, if the Chiefs and Bengals play, then you don't need a neutral site. If the 1 seed or the home field advantage or the home field advantage or the bye is the choice that the number 1 seed gets, well, it shouldn't matter if you get to the AFC Championship game if you chose the bye, if it's the number 3 seed, the Bengals, that you're playing instead of the Bills. But a distinction there in that quote that I missed the first go-around was if it involves teams that did not play the extra game. So that would include even the Cincinnati Bengals.
But then it says if it factors in.
If it factors in.
Where the Bengals, if the Bengals are essentially a game and a half back of the Chiefs for the 1 seed,
then it shouldn't factor
then it wouldn't factor in.
Right, but what does factor in mean?
I don't know.
Does factor in mean, well, they didn't play that game, so that's why everything's being moved around, so they but I mean, you can sit back and anybody that can look at records can say, well, even if the Bengals played one more game and won, it wouldn't matter. They still would have finished a game behind the Chiefs, whether they won or not. The win doesn't count for 2. So that shouldn't matter in any way, shape, or form if the Chiefs and Bengals match up. That game, if the Chiefs beat the Raiders, no matter what, should be at Arrowhead. If that's the 2 seed in the divisional round, the Chiefs are playing the Bengals, or if it's the 1 seed in the AFC Championship game.
What if the? I guess I'm trying to think of what the lowest seed that could make it there would be. What if the 4? What if it's the 1 versus the 4 seed? What if they're playing the where that be the Jags or something? If it's a Chiefs-Jags AFC Championship game, is that getting played in Indy or Detroit or Tennessee or whatever? Right. I think it makes a little more sense. I think I like Matt Hasselbeck's pitch a little more than the latter there on the neutral site thing. I wonder if that's even a place where the NFL goes in the future. Another place to sell stuff. I don't know. But it's strange to split it up this way. But if you say, hey, Bills, you get the AFC Championship game at home if you get there. Hey, Chiefs, you get your first week off, and you get to play at home all the way until you would play the Bills. And if you never play the Bills, everything's an Arrowhead. Yeah. From the Chiefs' perspective, that's the best because it's the worst case scenario is that you head to Buffalo to play the AFC Championship game. And if we get there, I think we'd all just sign up for that right now. Yeah,
I had a couple of texts, too, that kind of the same point of don't really care where they play if the Chiefs are in the AFC Championship game.
Yep.
And I totally understand that sentiment. I think, and
we've watched them win and lose AFC Championship games, plural, here.
That's right. I mean, they're 2-2 at home in AFC Championship
so, I mean,
games,
I don't know.
They're 500.
It's cooler when it's here, but if it's not, it's fine.
Agreed. I lost my train of thought.
Sorry.
No, you're good. You're good.
Just got really excited about
you're fine.
an AFC Championship game not being in Kansas City for once. Think about how long it's been since we've seen that.
No, what I was going to say is, I'm in agreement with that it doesn't matter where they play as long as the Chiefs are in the AFC Championship game, which is why I would go with, if given the choice, I'll take the bye.
At 1,000%.
Take the week off, play the worst remaining seed in the second round, and then go to Buffalo if they win their 2 games, and then if they don't win those 2 games, play at home in the AFC Championship game. I will gladly take that choice other than, well, now it doesn't matter what the other side of the bracket does. You're playing 3 games. If you were to win them, they're at home, but you got to play 3 games. Whereas you played 2, and then the Bills lose, you're like, oh, crap, we could have the bye, and the Bills still lose.
Right.
Depending on what that was.
There's no guarantee that the Bills are there for the championship game. There's no guarantee that you are, but not playing a game guarantees advancing around and that all your players get 1 week healthier and at least not 1 week more hurt.
Health is more important than home field advantage to me.
Yep.
A fully healthy team that didn't go through a playoff game of the bumps and bruises and the tackling and the chances of getting injured and the little sprains or
Look what
nicks.
happened this week. Sky Moore's hand exploded. Joe Tooney's ankle got rolled up on, and L'Jarius Sneed's hip was like a real question. It was pointed at. That's just stuff that Sky Moore's hand splitting is something that just happens when you're playing a game and doesn't happen if you're at home watching football that weekend.
Well, even before the game, what happened with Damar Hamlin on Monday night, I mean, Josh Allen had his ankle rolled up on.
Yep.
I mean, when the Bengals got the ball back, I mean, 2 plays later is when that happened, but they showed Josh Allen on the sideline getting worked on with his left ankle that got rolled up on. That can happen in any game that's played, and it's just less of an opportunity, less of a chance for you to get hit or take some bumps and bruises and things like that along the way. Another text says, what if a dragon sits on Arrowhead Stadium prior to the Chiefs hosting a playoff game? Any other genius possibilities you want to consider?
Yeah, so Beards obviously is the Game of Thrones expert, but let's really get into this one. So if there's a dragon, if it's breathing fire, that matters, of course, and it depends on what type.
You're in the zone with Jason Anderson on Sports Radio 810 WHB. The Zone with Jason Anderson.
You could have also gone.
Weekdays from 10 to 2 on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
We'll talk some Chris Jones in the next segment. Tex says, oh yeah, our kicking game will look really good in Buffalo in late January. Well,
yeah, it hasn't looked good in
Kansas City
in
early January.
In October, November, December, or January.
Yeah,
so.
I mean, I'm just, I'd rather you have a healthy team with a suspect kicking game than a team that had to play an extra game with a suspect kicking game or kissing game. A suspect kicking game.
I have no information on the kissing game of Tommy Towns and Harrison Butker. I don't know. I could try to get the significant others to report on that one.
The way that foot kisses the football
matters
there
you
a lot.
Go. That's true,
in
you
the
know?
Kicking game. 913-912-4810. Another text points out, and I know there's the emotional part of it and everything, but did the Bills and the Bengals just get a bye? There is obvious, from a body, physical standpoint, there's the obvious impact of not having to play the game except for 10 minutes of football or 9 minutes of football. One possession for the Bengals defense, one possession for the Bills offense, one possession for the Bengals offense in 2 plays, and then one possession for the Bills defense in 2 plays. And that's really it. You didn't go through a full bye week because you still practiced and everything.
And prepared for an opponent and all of that.
Prepared for an opponent. The emotional toll certainly is there, but from a bye standpoint of talking about getting healthy, they did not. Josh Allen didn't have to play the rest of that game with a compromised left ankle. So, I mean, there is a point there, but
that could be part of the logic also of letting the Chiefs have the bye and then giving the Bills the AFC Championship game. There's a little bit of offsetting there potentially. It's 50 fewer minutes of football.
And again, that's exactly what I'm going with. Text does say Komodo dragon. What if a Komodo dragon sat on Arrowhead Stadium?
I thought it was going to be what if someone sent a taxidermied Komodo dragon because I forgot that conversation was fully off air. Somebody sent J.J. Watt a taxidermied badger. The pictures are shocking. Hey, also have something here from Pro Football Talk just a minute ago.
Yep.
Current information we have, Bills-Bengals won't happen. The NFL is currently figuring out how to configure the AFC playoffs without that game. Could an 8th team be added to eliminate the bye week for the number 1 seed? I'm not sure who that benefits other than whoever the 8th seed would be. The Patriots, perhaps, or something like that.
This is just their excuse to get every team in the playoffs.
Yeah, and
how do we get to 32 teams in the playoffs?
And Florio ends that in a question mark, so that's not the news bit. There is that it seems very unlikely this game happens.
That's exactly right. That's what I took away from that is the game's not going to happen. After that, there's a lot of things up for debate. I think we also have to acknowledge this, too. Adam Schefter saying, here are some things being discussed. Pro Football Talk, Florio saying, could this be a possible answer? We also have to acknowledge there might be those in the league that are saying, hey, we're thinking about this. Now let's see what the public says.
Yep, absolutely.
Let's see what the reaction is to this. Okay, neutral site, everybody thinks that's dumb. Well, we weren't really discussing neutral.
What about an 8th playoff team?
That's absurd. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Well, we were throwing around a lot of ideas. We weren't really discussing that. I mean, there is an element of let's put that out there, see what the weather is, and then we'll come back and reassess.
Cousins.
The Zone with Jason Anderson.
Texas, my texts are read so often, I'm thinking of signing them as show contributor.
Weekdays from 10 to 2 on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
All right, we continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Jason Anderson, Josh Brisco, and Beards heading up until 2 o'clock. An hour from now, we'll hear from the Chiefs. It'll be Andy Reid, Steve Spagnuolo, Dave Tobe, Eric Bieniemy, and Travis Kelce. So a full slate of coaches and a player today. So a longer press conference coming up later on this afternoon, an hour from now. We'll hear from the Chiefs. 913-912-4810. A lot of people weighing in on some of the possibilities that are there for the NFL and what may or may not take place. I do want to clear something up. Go ahead, Beards.
Just real quick, I've got a YouTube comment here.
Yes.
Determine the seating with a good old-fashioned cook-off. KC Barbecue versus Buffalo Wings versus Skyline Chili.
Done.
I love it. I love it.
That's great.
I think at least 2/3 of that group's going to agree to that challenge. And if I can just eat barbecue and buffalo wings for any reason.
Right.
What was
those are
that
the
third
only
one
two.
again? Yeah, I don't remember there being a third one. It was just the two.
Yeah, it was just those two.
You climb up to the top building and throw it off a skyline?
Ooh, that would be. That's
what you do? Just
Throw it up on the skyline.
Throw it off the... Oh, look at that skyline of that city. Who's up there at the top? What are they throwing off? Oh, yeah, I know what it is.
Makes
Yeah,
sense. That's spaghetti?
Yeah, there's a lot of cheese. And is that spaghetti?
Is that spaghetti and
spaghetti sauce, spaghetti and meatballs.
Unmelted shredded cheese? Hold on.
Got to be spaghetti and meatballs that they put cheese on, so they just Americanize spaghetti and meatballs.
Even that
Jeez.
makes me sad. You just describing like shredded cheddar cheese on top of spaghetti and meatballs kind of bummed me out.
Parmesan, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, something. I mean, you got a white cheese for sure there.
But I want to clarify too, because when it's the choice of a bye week or a home field advantage that was thrown out there by Adam Schefter that the league is considering, which by the way I think the league is probably considering about 10 or 11 different things.
100% agree.
With the starting point being they're not playing the game.
Yep.
So no contest. Now let's figure out what we do moving forward. Here are a lot of different things on the table. Let's try to figure out what is best, what can be as close to fair to all parties involved, and then we make the decision and we simply move forward. But if it comes down to the number one seed gets the choice between the bye or the home field advantage, we had all mentioned that you take the bye and then you figure out where you end up playing the game in the AFC Championship game. And on Twitter, somebody replied and said, no, if you take the bye, then you're playing the Bengals and the Bills, and you want to avoid those, so take the home field advantage. But I think that was under the understanding that taking the bye and not home field would mean that you're the two, but you're not. So you would get the bye.
This is also my understanding, yes.
But the Bills and Bengals, you'd still be the one seed.
Right.
Everything else would play out the
be
same.
the one seed.
Yes. That's it.
And you would play all your games at home unless the 2-seeded Buffalo Bills are in the AFC Championship game.
Yes.
In which case it would be at the 2-seed Buffalo Bills.
That's right. So you would not have to play Buffalo and Cincinnati if you took the bye. You would play Buffalo or Cincinnati. As long as the Chiefs win this weekend, it certainly feels like they are going to avoid both the Bills and the Bengals in the playoffs, regardless of where that game is played.
Right. I think that's right.
If they were to win.
By the end of this show today, we could have something completely different. And the podcast of these last 2 hours will be about some made-up alternate timeline that never came together, because the NFL is definitely throwing some Skyline chili at the wall.
And that wall now has just burned through a hole.
Now, I'm now throwing Pepto-Bismol at that wall to see if we can try to get that wall to build back up at all.
What about this idea? This text comes in 913-912-4810. This is interesting. Hadn't thought about this. Says have each team pick one player and have them duke it out on Madden.
Ooh, interesting.
And then it counts. So luckily the Cardinals are not involved
here. Do they have to play with
here.
their own team?
Yes.
Got to, I think.
Yeah, you are not allowed to play with. Yeah, you have to play with your own team, and the Cardinals are not involved here. So therefore, Kyler Murray, the professional gamer, cannot play. So he is out. So that's good. Or
the Chiefs have several good options. This is a good one for the Chiefs. Yeah, because Juju, famously a gamer. McCole Hardman, Trey Smith, and Andrew Wiley, I think, all do stuff with the Kansas City Pioneers, the esports team here. So I don't know what the Bills esports roster would be, but I'm very on board for the Chiefs to go ahead and let that figure it out on the sticks, as they say.
But we just don't know about what the Bills and the Bengals, how good some of those players are at Madden.
But without knowing that, I feel pretty good about the Chiefs side.
Boy, you're going into that blind.
Especially if you're only picking 1, 2, maybe 4 guys. I know the Chiefs have 4 who I trust again on the sticks.
Yes.
In an attempt to make it sound really cool.
Text also says, comes in and says, or like we had with COVID, run a Cincy Buffalo Madden simulation. Air it on ESPN. We watch, game counts.
Boy, I tell you what, that would require, here's the thing, can I be honest?
But it starts 7-3 at the Bills' 48-yard line, Bengals 1st and 10, 5:58 to play.
If I was in charge, I could think of worse ways to do that. It's not the worst thing that's even been floated out today. It's not adding 2 more playoff teams and eliminating bye weeks for the 1 seeds. I would prefer I'd watch the Madden simulation. Put it on ESPN, get them their commercial breaks again. Turn off injuries. Let them run. I don't hate it.
Yeah.
I don't hate that one, and that makes me feel like I should be on TikTok.
I don't think that's going to be part of it, though.
Probably not.
Yeah.
But man, how good would it be for the gamers among us?
Yes. 913-912-4810. The one thing we know is, assuming health with everybody, that the Chiefs will have the most dominant defensive interior player in the game right now.
It's true.
In Chris Jones, and how good he's been and what he's meant to this defense overall, and getting more and more used to the defense. Let's play the clip that we didn't get a chance to play it on Monday because we had a show that was 10 minutes long on Monday, and then everything changed in terms of what we were talking about that night. But Chris Jones talking about the adjustments that he can make in the game around the play call, knowing the defense and being that familiar with Steve Spagnuolo's defensive calls and where guys are supposed to be, which has helped him be as dominant this year as he has been and see some of that production.
I don't really rush for Frank in the game because we're going to get the slide. We might get a chip also. So it's like I try my best to stay away from Frank Clark throughout the game. And I was lining up as a shade. We was running some type of pressure, spaz call. And I kind of avoided the pressure and lined up as a shade anyway and just rushed the center one-on-one. Because I earlier in the game, we got the look and the center blocked me one-on-one. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to line back up in it. If he blocked me one-on-one, I know what to do.
Chris, does that give you the freedom to kind of, if you see something, do that kind of go on your own a little bit there? A little bit. He gives me the freedom. I'm well aware of the defense. I know the defense, and I know what type of coverages we be in. Quarters have. We playing too high. So I kind of know where, like, the holes are in the defense and what I'm able to do without hurting the defense. So
it's interesting because we hear about, like, cornerbacks or linebackers, things like that. Of like,
this is a paper I wrote part of this down on. No, we're good, man.
My first thought,
we're in sync here.
In hearing that is a safety saying, "Well, I know where this guy's supposed to be, so I can jump this route over there. I can cheat a little bit on that side, and even disguising the coverage, I can do some of those things." That even on the defensive line, Chris Jones talking about, "Well, I know what this is going on over there. I know what that guy's doing, and I know what they're doing in terms of a blocking scheme and what Steve Spagnuolo is asking me to do and what the defensive line overall to do, and I can then adjust based on what I'm seeing from a blocking standpoint, which can also allow him to get more of an advantage from time to time and just being that smart when it comes to playing that defensive line position."
Every other spot on the field outside of the trenches, media, fans, all together, whatever, we've got a better understanding over the years of what the inner workings of those matchups are. Even things like, okay, so whenever Travis Kelce sees the way that this DB is lined up on him in the slot, he knows by the leverage where his route's going to go, and Mahomes sees the game the same way. We never really get that in the trenches because to a lot of us, I'm putting myself in this because I'm trying to be better at it, but it just sort of seems like you've got more or less 5 guys locking arms and then a bunch of guys playing Red Rover, right? Which is a total egregious oversimplification.
Also one way to decide who gets home field advantage.
Play some Red Rover. So the idea that Chris Jones, they gave him this look earlier and the center took him one-on-one and then they showed the same look again. He went, he's going to get me one-on-one. I'm going to just shade here and I'm going to hunt this one-on-one matchup and then blow the game up in that spot. I've got 500 Chris Jones things that I think we could reasonably talk about. But that part of it is one that never makes it to the surface. Because, again, it's hard, frankly, also, it's hard to watch the trenches on TV and really separate those guys individually. Certainly to know if Chris Jones is, what exact degree in the gap he's lined up and everything. So to hear Chris Jones talk about being able to hunt a matchup like that in light of what they had done earlier in the game, that he knows what the defense is behind him, so he's aware of the impact that'll have behind, and he kind of knows what his flexibility is. That's the tip of the iceberg, but particularly in that clip, I just thought it was a really cool little glimpse into what it is to be a dominant player making a dominant play at a key moment.
And I'd be interested to hear Steve Spagnuolo today weigh in on that, because we asked Eric Bieniemy, Andy Reid, the offensive players, about some freedom in the offense. That what did Travis Kelce say? It's not a line on a paper, like the routes isn't just a line on a piece of paper. Like there's some fluctuation that goes along with it. There's some ad-libbing that you can do on the fly with whatever defense you're seeing, and then you've got to be in concert with Patrick Mahomes and make sure you guys are on the same page. You're seeing the same thing, and that comes with repetitions and things like that. But haven't really ever talked with, at least from the defensive line standpoint, to Steve Spagnuolo, of freedom that's there for the defensive lineman, because you've got to rush and be gap sound, especially certain quarterbacks you're going up against, that you don't want to then leave one side completely wide open and lose contain. Because, heck, even Davis Mills can run for 17-yard touchdown when you lose contain at that point. But having or giving guys, and maybe only certain guys, the freedom to say, no, I trust your instincts. You've been in the defense long enough. I've also made a lot of plays for this team, that you're the football player on the field. I'll let you play the game and trust what you're seeing, feeling, and looking for in that game to go and make some of those decisions. Whereas maybe Jalen Watson or Joshua Williams or McDuffie or even Reed first year, that, no, man, I need you here. I need you here on that spot because this and that, and you guys haven't played long enough to know that if I'm here, this guy's going to adjust and do that over there. And so, but Frank Clark and Chris Jones have played together for now 4 years.
Right. And even whenever we talk about like the, getting comfortable in a defense and stuff like that, this is the Maddenification that I think people come by it honestly, but you go, okay, so you call a play and then you line up in this spot and you either have an arrow going forward or a box that means man or a zone that you cover. But really, the thing that I have grown to appreciate so much more over the last several years of just being able to sink more into the details and hear things like that from players in public, talking about the adjustments you're making to the things you're reading, and all of that is happening in a nanosecond. That is where I think we do a disservice to the difficulty of football in Madden, because even if you're out there like sliding your protections or whatever, what the guys are doing in real time based off what they've seen and been studying all week long, it is truly a beautiful game.
And I know that he's got 13 sacks this year. He had 15 and a half in the 16 games in 2018. He had more tackles for loss that year, 19. He's got 15 this year, roughly the same amount of tackles overall. So, you'd say statistically, is it better that year? And now looking at it, also he had the pick six that year too. So pretty good year. Pretty good year. A couple of forced fumbles too. So he was pretty dominant that year in 2018, and had the 11 straight games with a sack.
That was that little casual streak.
Other than that, and he hasn't done it to that level since. 9 sacks, 7.5 sacks, 9 sacks, and now up to 13 through 16 games. Is it because there is no Dee Ford and Justin Houston that this year feels more dominant than that year? Because I don't remember talking about Chris Jones as being one of, if not the best defensive, and Aaron Donald was, being Aaron Donald at that time. So there was a lot of, and J.J. Watt, moving around, but being, interior at some time. But so I don't remember at that time being like Chris Jones, the catalyst for this defense. You can't lose him. What he means to this defense. And it's awesome he's getting the sacks, but Justin Houston and Dee Ford, and they're putting pressure on the quarterback. Whereas this year, the numbers aren't as at least the counting numbers aren't there, but it does feel like he's having more of an impact and a more dominant player this year than he was when he put up better statistical numbers.
Yeah, I think part of that is that year being kind of the groundwork on like what this player can be. And then, last year with the defensive end experiment and all of the things that kind of got clunky there, seeing him rise back up to that level again this year, I think that's part of it. Is we all now know this is not some fluky thing for Chris Jones. This is who he is. I think we're getting a little bit better at appreciating him as a player and what it means to see the impact from the interior of a defensive line that isn't just sacking the quarterback. But yeah, also, he's the face of the defense now. It's not Tyrann Mathieu. It's not Justin Houston or Dee Ford or even for, Anthony Hitchens, kind of a weird one. But he was, the middle linebacker with the green dot and all of that. This is Chris Jones's defense more than anybody else on that side of the football. And he has been very, very good in the counting stats, jumping off the field when you're just watching 95, and you see the way he's being used in big moments. That's something else that Seth Kaiser's written about a couple of times now because he had a couple of excuses to do it. Chris Jones, late in games, has made big plays, and those are typically the times you remember performances like that. That's not always a good way to judge a player's performance, but in this case, this year, it has elevated, I think, the perception of Chris Jones. Still probably not elevated it enough, but it has elevated it from where he was that season.
Well, and he was in the conversation for Defensive Player of the Year. It's Micah Parsons, and so I haven't even seen it on the board, going and looking at it to see if you can even bet on it, because I can't find it at DraftKings, I'll tell you that. So I'm not sure if they've just said, well, there's no use in even putting this out there on the board.
Did Nick Bosa make a push back up at all? I'm trying to.
Maybe.
I just saw something on Twitter recently that made me think that he was.
I went and looked before we were going to have the conversation about, what the awards were.
This was, so as of a month ago, Parsons was minus 280. Bosa got up to plus 175, but that was December, not quite a month ago, December 15th.
But, I mean, even like the MVP, Mahomes, is minus 750. But that's still on the board.
Right.
And then the other ones that are listed at DraftKings, Offensive Rookie of the Year, Comeback Player of the Year, and Coach of the Year. So maybe Defensive Rookie of the Year is taken off the board because Sauce Gardner has pretty much wrapped that one up.
He's locked it up like most receivers he's seen this year.
Yes. So you've got the things that are in question because Joe Burrow, Josh Allen. I mean, if Joe Burrow goes out there and puts up 6 touchdowns or whatever it might be against the Raiders or Ravens. Offensive Rookie of the Year, Kenneth Walker is minus 130. Garrett Wilson is plus 200. That can go one way or another.
Still flip, yeah.
And then Comeback Player of the Year at DraftKings, it is a tie. Plus 175, both Geno Smith and Christian McCaffrey.
I get it for Christian
Saquon Barkley
McCaffrey,
is plus 225.
I get it for both those running backs, but Geno was like
3-horse race.
A throw-in.
3-horse race. And then the coaching is sort of a 3-horse race for the Coach of the Year. Nick Sirianni plus 150, Kyle Shanahan plus 200, Brian Daboll plus 300.
That seems like the right group
then
of three.
It drops to like plus 1,000, plus 2,000. Yeah. Andy Reid's plus 10,000 if you want to throw some a dart on that one. I don't think he's going to win.
Betting on Andy Reid to win Coach of the Year has been like the worst investment that sounds good on paper and never pays out.
That's exactly right. But, I mean, he was in that conversation this year.
Yeah.
Getting as high as, I think, third, tied for third. So 2 guys ahead of him, and then he was tied, I think, with Max Crosby at some point for being the third betting favorite. So
if that was split by conference, he'd win it. Think about that.
That's a good point.
He would be the AFC Defensive Player of the Year. I know that's kind of a silly designation.
He and Crosby.
That's true. That they would be the final 2. You're right.
Yep.
That's fair.
Because they were last time I saw they were tied, but then Parsons started running away with it. But good point. Nick Bosa was up there. At number 2, I think Jones was ahead of Judon, tied with Crosby, but Judon was there too. With the Patriots losing some games.
That's a silly distinction. I only even mention it because when stuff shows up on your Pro Football Reference page or you have some hardware of some sort, people do give you credit for that. So we talk about Pro Bowls, even as it's a fan vote. It's been a fan voted thing, and now we've got these thirds and all of that. But like, guys get hurt or just decide not to play. Well, then someone else's Pro Football Reference page says one-time Pro Bowler.
And what we have is, an issue or a decision for the Chiefs as to what they're going to do moving forward, because I don't think Chris Jones plays out his contract in Kansas City.
1 year after this one remaining.
That's what I mean.
Figure it out. Yep.
I don't think he plays out his contract
Yep.
as it currently stands in Kansas City. He's either on a different team next year or he's got a new contract that they have extended him and they've given him a, maybe 3-year extension. Or maybe a 2-year extension that it's 3 more years and they, make the money come close to what Aaron Donald ended up getting. And that's the big decision that's going to be made. And I go back to what Cynthia Freeland had said when we talked to her about it. And, there's no Patrick Mahomes on the defense to make up for trading Tyreek Hill.
Correct.
And there's no Travis Kelce that's with Patrick Mahomes and Tyreek Hill to make up for trading Tyreek Hill.
Correct.
there is Chris Jones, who's kind of the Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill right now of the defense. He's the catalyst. He's how the defense plays. He's the center point. You'd have to change a lot, and you would better, if you were to trade Chris Jones, which I don't think they should do, if you were to trade Chris Jones, you would better hit on the defensive end. You'd better get it right. Whatever draft picks you get, you cannot miss, because now you are a worse team with a lesser player at just a different position. And now, what do you have to go off of to start your defense? Because right now, what you have to go off of is the guy who's playing as the most impactful defensive interior lineman in the game. That's what you're starting with. That's a hell of a starting point for a defense for Steve Spagnuolo. Fill in after that. Take him away, miss on a defensive end, and your starting point is
George Karlaftis and a bunch of
linebackers.
Your corners,
younger
corners
secondary.
are good.
Yes, Snead.
But someone's got to go find the quarterback, and that's a hard thing to do. So I've got two kind of angles on this, and one of them is more macro, and I've been a part of it. You brought it up, but I also I told you I got a little something on this side of it. So this isn't friendly fire. But why on earth is every conversation about Chris Jones this season immediately followed by a conversation about if the Chiefs should trade Chris Jones?
That is true.
We didn't do that to Tyreek Hill. Now, maybe he's a fan favorite. He's scoring your fantasy points. But the reason we do it with Chris Jones is because people don't like Chris Jones that much. Like, you are more excited about the assets, not you. The Royal You is more excited about the assets that Chris Jones could bring back than you are about watching a truly dominant defensive player, the most dominant player the Chiefs defense has had since ... Maybe Justin Houston, maybe Tamba, maybe Derek Thomas. I mean, you figure out where you want to draw your lines on all of those. But the most dominant defensive player, certainly of the Patrick Mahomes era, we can't help ourselves but try to build a trade package to figure out how we can get that guy out of here for the 22nd overall pick, which is going to turn into what? Another George Karlaftis? Cool. But if you're not getting a top 5 pick, you're not replacing that production. And now I'm doing the conversation that I don't think is there's any logic to actually having right now. I love team building, and I tend to be very transactional. I am much more willing to trade guys away than I thought most people were. I'm increasingly finding out that maybe Chris Jones is where I'm drawing my line, because like you mentioned and Cynthia mentioned, there is not the cure-all on defense that says, hey, you can churn these pieces and then still stay functional as a unit. You have that with Patrick Mahomes. That was the bet of trading Tyreek Hill, is we can trade Tyreek Hill. We can give Patrick Mahomes some dudes, some okay players around him, because he's still got Travis Kelce and he still is Patrick Mahomes. And then we'll invest in the defense, try to raise the overall level over there. We'll try to give him a good offensive line. But that was the entire logic around Tyreek Hill. It's the reason it was a good trade for both teams. It was good for the Chiefs to get all the assets back that they did, and it was good for the Dolphins because they don't have Patrick Mahomes.
That's right.
They needed a playmaker who could extend a play beyond where he catches the football from. Pairing with Jalen Waddle, it's a great unit there. So one part of it that confuses me is, why do we have to have this conversation about trading Chris Jones if every time he makes a tackle, someone's going to tweet about, oh, that's good, that's up in his trade value, even though he's not actually that good of a player. The takes get kind of confusing to me. But I just think comparing him and Tyreek Hill is a lazy way to do the evaluations. Just a player at the end of his deal. We can talk about it in the offseason, and if someone wants to build the case of, hey, trading this blue chip player for as many assets as possible is a better way of building a team in the macro sense, I agree with that generally. And there might, hear me say this with between my gritted teeth, there might be a trade package that would make me say, you know what? That would be a lot for the Chiefs to build with if somebody loves Chris Jones as much as the Chiefs do, as much as I do. I'm not saying that number doesn't exist. I'm saying we're not going to find out that number before the freaking draft order is set. We should appreciate the football he's playing right now, as opposed to just seeing it all as his stock going up or down. And there's not the correlation with the Tyreek Hill trade from how the team is built at the moment. They could still trade Chris Jones, but it's not going to be because they just have this perfect strategy of churning out guys in the last year of their deals.
I want to continue this conversation with more on the other side of the break. 913-912-4810. A couple of other points you brought up there that I want to talk about. And even looking ahead, too, that, if that is the strategy, Well, I'll just save it for the other side.
Ooh, I love it.
912-4810. More Zone next.
Want to see more of The Zone? Watch the show live on the Sports Radio 810 WHB Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Twitch. The Zone with Jason Anderson.
Nice job, Josh.
Nice job, Dylan.
Nice job, Christopher. Way to go, Beards.
Thank you.
Weekdays from 10 to 2 on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
All right, we continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Jason Anderson, Josh Brisco, Beards, heading up until 2 o'clock. We'll hear from the Chiefs at 1 o'clock. Andy Reid, Dave Tobe, Steve Spagnuolo, Eric Bieniemy, and also Travis Kelce. Hear from them coming up at 1 o'clock. Most of the 1 o'clock hour is probably what that will end up being. 913-912-4810 is the text line to be a part of the show, part of the conversation. 913-912-4810. Text says, Josh, I believe it's Dayton Moore's fault. He was not so transactional and loyal. KC sports fans have swung too far the other direction.
I kind of like that take.
To be more transactional.
Also finding another thing to blame Dayton Moore for that definitely wasn't his fault. I mean, that's also very Kansas City sports of us.
Yes. Text says, Patriots seem to survive without Richard Seymour and the drafts in KC this year, which I think makes it more likely the Chiefs try to get more first-day picks. I don't think the draft has anything to do with it. And
think about how stupid the Rams were for not trading Aaron Donald earlier. God.
Yeah.
What a dumb team.
Yes.
There's degrees to it. It varies from player to player and team to team.
Mm-hmm. 913-912-4810 is the text line. We'll get to some more texts as well. But, you know, as we talk about this and your point, and the irony is, you know, your point being, why do we talk about Chris Jones and how dominant he is and immediately turn the page to, right, but they got to trade him, or should they trade him, and the conversation about the future, because it is, I mean, obviously it is a big decision, but the irony is, you know, you ask that. And then now, as we talk about Chris Jones and the conversation around what his impact is, that when you get to a certain age, all right, the Chiefs behind the scenes, are they discussing it? Well, I think all options are being discussed.
As they should be.
Yes. Are we going to, if we traded Chris Jones, what would we want back? What would we ask for? What would we take? Which teams would we trade with? Does it have to be a top 10 pick? How much money are we going to pay Chris Jones? Chris Jones and his agent probably saying, you know, where are we going to end up? Where will we accept a trade to? How much money do we want before we step on a football field?
Stuff they have some control over, because he's going to he would sign a new deal somewhere else, just like Tyreek Hill did.
Absolutely.
So Tyreek Hill basically had veto power.
That's exactly right. So where do we want to get traded to? How much money are we going to step on the field? How much money is that contract going to be before we step on the field in 2023 again, whether that's holding out in Kansas City or it is somewhere else, or the Chiefs simply give you that money? What I don't understand with some of this is, okay, so you didn't pay Tyreek Hill because you wanted to restructure. And you may or may not pay Orlando Brown because of some of the production that's been going on this year, although, as we've talked about, better the second half of the year, maybe they just franchise tag him again, but not give him the $100 million and whatever. And then not pay Chris Jones. So what's the point of making the moves if you
such a good point, Jason.
Never actually spend the money anywhere? I mean, yes, you're spending it on Patrick Mahomes, but you're also spending it on Patrick Mahomes this year.
Right.
They have $17 million under the cap next year, but they're going to get $22 million more with Frank Clark. I think there's a decent chance they move on from MVS and get $7 million more, so that could be up in the 50s. And also, that counts with Chris Jones' $29 million cap hit next year. So if you were to sign him or extend him, I'm guessing part of that process will be to lower the cap hit next year. Now then you would say, okay, well, now you're just kicking the can down the road. Yes, you are. Spot Track in 2025, so the cap this year is $208 million. Do you know what Spot Track estimates the cap in 2025? This year was $208 million. They estimate the cap in 2025.
Which came up from, it's typically jumped like what?
It's
10-ish
jumped $10 million every year, but all the new contracts,
so I mean,
all the new TV deals
standard has been about $10 million.
Yeah, but all the new TV contracts
2025, it might jump. I don't know. It might jump by I would say up to $11 million.
2025 estimated cap at Spotrac is $354 million.
That is actually higher than my serious guess would have been, too.
The Chiefs have currently 13 players under contract. That would be Mahomes, Tooney, and Kelce, and their rookie class this year. They have 13 players under contract. And roughly in 2025, right now, they have $247 million of cap space. This is kind of what teams have been banking on, right? Of the new TV contracts going through and the revenue starting to just funnel into the NFL, which then goes to the salary cap with the the collective bargaining agreement. If it's anywhere near 350, I feel like it would be absurd to not extend Chris Jones. And by the way, Aaron Donald signed that 3-year, $95 million fully guaranteed contract as a 31-year-old. If Chris Jones signs gets 3 more years in Kansas City, his contract would end at the age Aaron Donald was when he signed that 3-year deal. So they're not the same age.
Which is about the time that I would probably start really reconsidering some things.
But can you pay Chris Jones, a lot of money and have him for the next 3? Give him the 3-year, $95 million Aaron Donald got? Because Aaron Donald's cap hit structure was 27, 26, 34. And if Chris Jones is 27, 26, 24, well, we're already talking about the cap hit next year with 28.3. So you've actually just lowered it by 1.3. 26 the year after that. And then 2025's cap is estimated $354 million. You think $34 million would fit into that cap? I mean, I don't know what it's going to end up being. But the NFL has been banking on this happening. And let's also acknowledge that $208 million is COVID pandemic adjusted.
True.
That it wouldn't be at 208. It'd probably be at 225 this year. So there's more money to work with. Now, if they were to, cut Frank Clark and cut MVS, and we're talking about $54 million of cap space next year, well, they'd still need a left tackle.
Yep.
Because Orlando Brown isn't under contract there. And they need wide receivers.
Yep.
Because Juju's a free agent and MVS is a free agent if you cut him, and then Mecole Hardman's a free agent. So your top 3 would be free agents. You'd need to go out and get somebody, whether that be in the draft or...
And the wide receiver free agent class, as we've covered on this show next year, is rough.
Yes.
2 of the best receivers in the class are currently on the Chiefs, being Juju and Mecole Hardman.
Tex says, if the cap jumps that much, then Mahomes will rightly demand a raise, so you don't have that much room as you're projecting it right now. Yes, in 2025, Mahomes' cap hit is $46 million, and the cap space, as it stands right now, would be $247. So give him $14 million more, make his cap hit $60, and you're sitting at $233 in cap space. If it jumps that much. If it jumps that much. But there are other things to take into account because you've got other guys that you want to keep around for a while.
Sure.
Because
you're hoping you're extending L'Jarius Sneed, maybe Trent McDuffie.
100%.
You'd love for George Karlaftis to need a big contract.
I mean, Sneed's this offseason, right? I mean, Sneed, you extend him this offseason. Chris Jones, I'd like to see them do that. I wonder how often you need to take the star player and turn it into other pieces as opposed to having a game wrecker where the difference between the Chiefs and the Bills was Von Miller.
Right.
It wasn't Matt Milano. The difference in this game was Von Miller. He isn't there anymore. So you go, well, yeah, he's injured. He's not there, which is a risk you take. But you get guys like that so that you can have difference makers in big games. Chris Jones last year in the playoffs wasn't the difference maker in the Bengals game, and he talked about it all offseason.
Yep.
They also didn't get to the Bengals when they played them a couple of weeks ago. That needs to be better. Is that Chris Jones' fault, or is it the other pieces around Chris Jones? And I guess that would be then, well, yeah, but if you trade Chris Jones, now you get more pieces, and you can build an overall solid defense. But why can't you do that anyway?
Right. I mean, I think that was, again, the logic of the Tyreek Hill trade. They've got a bunch of average players on the NFL scale around Chris Jones. And it has looked shockingly competent at times with that being the way it's been built out. And look, I don't want to sit here and say if you think you want to trade Chris Jones, you're stupid. Because I don't believe that. I think there are situations where shuffling around your guys as they're approaching new contracts, even particularly with Chris Jones, there could be a path where this makes sense. But I have largely lost my patience for the idea that unless you are begging to trade Chris Jones this offseason, you're the idiot in the room. And I just don't think there's any reason you have to draw that line quite that strongly when you have examples at the position from different teams. Hey, Richard Seymour worked out great for New England, and keeping Aaron Donald worked out great for the Rams. You can decide what you think of Chris Jones first and then choose your priors there. Or, hey, when should they have traded Travis Kelce? Because they've been paying him, and he's old, and they're not going to get any picks back for him. Should they have traded him sooner?
I do wonder if there becomes a conversation of, okay, Kelsey dropped off this much, and would you have been better off trading him? It'd be hindsight. And that's
it
what
would have been before the Super Bowl, though.
Right.
I mean, like, this is no one in Kansas City should ever say they should have traded Travis Kelce.
Honestly, it probably would have been before this year. If you're really thinking about it,
before tear it all down,
before restructuring the contract and saying, before that starts to really drop off, and his age
but that
shows.
conversation's never been had, which is another example of people do not view Chris Jones at a similar level to Hill or Kelce, or frankly, I wonder how far down the list you could go before you would find people to say, yeah, okay, so Chris Jones. I had to fight people last year on Chris Jones being the most important, we're not fighting, but fighting people about Chris Jones being the most important player on the defense last year because people were still about Tyrann Mathieu. I mean, there are a lot of ways you can build your team out. To make it a hard line in the sand is really frustrating. If only I had some way to make myself feel better, maybe make 4 people feel a little bit better about the way their day is going.
Real small, quick one, and then we'll get to that making 4 people.
I just wish I could do that.
Bit better. We'll see if you can. The Patriots survived without Richard Seymour, okay? His last year was 2008. Now, that was the Brady injury, so that was Matt Castle. They didn't make the playoffs, even at 11-5. They won a Super Bowl in 2014. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years later, after trading Richard Seymour. They lost the Super Bowl the year before. Went to the conference championship game, divisional, won the Super Bowl 2 years prior to that. So, yeah, they survived without Richard Seymour. But even that dynasty in surviving without him, were they an overall better team by moving on from Richard Seymour? I don't know. He put up the same numbers with the Raiders the next 3 years that he did in New England. Also, Richard Seymour was like, 5 sacks, 3 sacks, 8 sacks, 7 sacks. Not 13 and 20 tackles for loss. Like, he wasn't doing those things. Seymour is a fine player. He's not as good as Chris Jones. Chris Jones is a much more dominant player. And
specific as a pass rusher, certainly.
Yeah. And also, maybe this goes to the point, maybe it doesn't, but those New England teams that were winning Super Bowls were built more on overall defense. And so could you then be able to withstand a loss to Richard Seymour when the overall defense you feel is solid, where with the Chiefs, you lose Chris Jones, what do you have? Because when trading Tyreek Hill, you had Mahomes and Kelsey. Without Chris Jones, you got a bunch of younger guys that you hope will eventually develop. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. But
you might not have Chris Jones if you trade him away, but you could have a family 4-pack of tickets to the Kansas City Mavericks versus the Allen Americans tomorrow night at Cable Dahmer Arena. Let's make it caller number 8 if you'd like, but you got to be able to come get the tickets. Hold on, nobody call yet. Listen here. You got to get to the station. These are physical tickets. You hear that? Physical tickets here at the station. So you got to come pick them up either before 5 today or before 5 tomorrow, because the game's tomorrow night out at Cable Dahmer Arena. So we got 1 4-pack of tickets to the Mavericks tomorrow night at Cable Dahmer Arena. Again, got to come get them here. 1 4-pack, 7 o'clock tomorrow night. 913-381-0810. And I don't know, make Beards laugh. Be the 8th caller. Bribe Beards with money. I don't know. You
have to be the 8th caller and make Beards laugh.
And
if you don't, then we start over with the count to get the
I honestly,
I
haven't thought that far ahead.
913-381-0810. Give us a call. Mavericks tickets. More Zone next.
Follow the show on Twitter at J810Anderson, at JB Brisco, at Beards McFly, and at Sports Radio 810.
Hey, this is the...
The Zone with Jason Anderson.
Turned out he went 20 minutes in his opening monologue. Like, come on, that's too long. You don't need to be talking for like 20 minutes in a monologue, guy. I mean, jeez Louise. Let somebody else have the mic a little bit.
Weekdays from 10 to 2 on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
Press conference going on with the update from the UC Medical Center on Damar Hamlin. And some highlights from the press conference that's taking place right now says that Dr. Timothy Pritz from the UC College of Medicine says that there has been, quote, substantial improvement with Damar Hamlin over the past 24 hours. Quote, he's beginning to awaken. It appears his neurological condition and function is intact. Calls it a turning point in the ongoing care. That's a big term that's been used a lot on Twitter in this conversation, that the last 24 hours have been a turning point for Damar Hamlin. UC Health physician Dr. William Knight IV says it's been a long and difficult road for the past few days. He has been very sick and has made a fairly remarkable improvement. Now is showing positive signs and vital signs in organ recovery. Also noting that the workup is ongoing regarding the cause, if there was an underlying issue, if it was just a 1 in a million, 1 in 10 million split second time thing. Also, Dr. Knight giving or saying that the immediate recognition of a serious situation and the loss of pulse by the Bills medical staff was critical, allowing Hamlin to get immediate bystander CPR and defibrillation. Says we cannot credit their team enough. Asked if it was not as quickly of a response, would the outcome have been different? And he says there's a decent chance that the outcome would have been different for Damar Hamlin if he didn't receive medical. They did as to what was going on, and then trying to do what they can to help alleviate that, while then the ambulance showed up to then get him to the hospital.
Also tweeted out here by Tom Pelissero saying, Dr. Pritz says Damar Hamlin's signs of improvement included emerging from his sleep, following commands, and asking who won the game. If that doesn't give you chills, you're unchillable. Because that's also the first that we've heard so far, at least as far as I've seen, that he's spoken. I mean, when you talk about neurological function and things like that, eyes opening is one thing. Neurological function appearing to be good is another. But being able to respond, follow commands, and to ask a question like that, I imagine is in a haze and still with some work to be done and some recovery continuing to be ongoing. But what an incredible detail there, and incredible sign for great news on Damar Hamlin.
Absolutely. And it speaks to the football player.
Yep.
That, hey, did we win? Who won the game? What happened in the game? Well, what if I told you the answer is, I don't know. Nobody won. Oh, there was a tie. Well, what if we said that it wasn't a tie? It was just a no contest. I wonder what his reaction would be when they told him, actually, when your injury happened, it was so serious, they stopped the game. The game has not gone on, and it's probably not going to be made up. It's just going to be one less game that the Bills and Bengals play.
Also here, a clarifying follow-up there from Pelissero saying Dr. Pritz clarifies that Hamlin cannot speak, still has a breathing tube in. He's been communicating and writing last night and today. So still tremendous. I mean, now we're talking about motor function and communication. So
amazing.
Ongoing good news there. It sounds like the breathing tube and the lung healing is still a very ongoing concern. But being able to communicate, again, not speaking right now because of the breathing tube, but continually good news there.
It is. It's really awesome news for what's going on with Damar Hamlin, and we're getting updates, and it's great, and it's all good updates, and it seems to be the UC Health Medical Center. There's a lot of credit going around, as there should be, for the immediacy in the response to what took place.
Yes.
We talked about the immediacy and how serious it was by the players' reaction of this is different, but I also talked about that the first trainer to get out there got down to a knee, and immediately they got the walkie-talkie connected like their collar, immediately started talking into the walkie-talkie, and that's when I knew it was different than just a typical injury, that it was very serious, and he recognized it right away.
Yeah, Albert Breer tweets out that last night he was told the work of Bills assistant athletic trainer Denny Kellington in administering CPR to Damar Hamlin on Monday night was absolutely vital. Sometimes we kind of have fun with who gets the ring presented by Ruback Fine Jewelry. In this case, I just wanted to spotlight him and this crew for the work that they did there. And look, again, just to spotlight them, I've also been appreciative, of course, of Ruback. Renee and I had our year anniversary of the engagement, and the work they do at Ruback Fine Jewelry, also excellent. And it feels kind of silly to attach it to the great work done by all the healthcare professionals, but felt like a good time to spotlight them. And also, of course, remind you, Ruback.co if you're looking for a great gift, a custom engagement ring, a great process will be handled with care. The folks at Ruback will do a great job with that. And again, just one more excuse to shine the spotlight on the crew at the medical center, those people on the field. Denny Kellington administering CPR, absolutely vital, heroic work.
The Zone with Jason Anderson.
Not much of a break yesterday, Herbie, unless you're counting lunch. I had lunch. That was good, right?
Weekdays from 10 to 2 on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
All right, we continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. We'll hear from Andy Reid. We'll hear from Dave Tobe, Eric Bieniemy, I believe, then Travis Kelce and Steve Spagnuolo. Looks like that's going to be the order. We'll hear from the Chiefs today with their press conferences getting ready for the Raiders. Also, as it relates to Damar Hamlin, we talked about the update of him being able to communicate via writing, which, motor function, that stuff is pretty awesome. Mm-hmm. So he woke up last night able to communicate writing. Still has the breathing tube, so he's not able to speak right now, but he is awake, and it seems like everything's working. What was the line that somebody used?
One of the doctors here said, quote, "It's not just that the lights are on, he's home. It appears all the cylinders are firing in his brain."
It's awesome.
Incredible.
Very cool. You asked a question that I think is interesting, that he asked about who won the game. Mm-hmm. Do you think they've told him about the charity yet?
I wonder. Because I don't, because we're not, obviously, we're 75 degrees removed from all the information. I don't know.
Only 75.
I don't know how much they're going to try to keep from flooding him with too much information or where he's at in a lot of things. But that's the moment I've been thinking about since the GoFundMe took off and we got the first just glimpse of good news, whenever that would have been, Tuesday morning maybe, is just thinking about what his reaction will be when someone says, hey, also, you've got $7 million to put back into your communities.
Yeah. It's at 7.3 now and continues to grow. That thing had a goal of $2,500.
Started years ago, right? 2 years ago, I think.
Yeah, $2,500, and it's at $7.3 million. $2,500 and now 7.3. I wonder, like, do you wait till he can speak, and then tell him that? Or, he woke up last night, has been communicating, so today, you got a lot of time sitting there and talking with them and, trying to communicate in that way. Like, at what point do you then say, hey, also, how about this for what you mean to the NFL, the country? Like, I would guess that they've probably shown them all the tweets, right? Mm. All these tweets of NFL players and everybody across the country that is tweeting about Damar Hamlin, like, waking up to that.
Yeah.
Going through is incredibly scary, and knowing that the road ahead is going to be tough still to make a full recovery. And who knows if he ever plays football again. And right now, probably the family, he don't really care about that part of it. Cross that road when you get to it. But the path moving forward is going to be tough to make a full recovery. But it sucks you went through this, but you've woken up, you're aware, you're communicating. Look at the reaction from across the globe, and also monetarily what they mean.
Very weird to do this again because there's a whole lot of differences. But whenever I was waking up in the ICU after being sedated for all of my things a little over a year ago, I think I probably had about a full day of being like responsive and kind of seeing what was going on before the clouds cleared.
Yeah.
I remember weirdly, I think it was a Panthers-Texans Thursday night football game, which thank God I didn't ever turn on the TV to see it. But I just didn't even know what day it was. I was just in the hospital bed like that overnight there, just kind of hanging out, just kind of figuring out what was going on. And that was long after a lot of positive things had already happened. So I specifically remember waking up and the first things being my mom explaining like all the people who had reached out, and I had no way of even I heard like some names that I remember now, but the comprehension of all of that was still very, very foggy. So there could be a million things very different in our situations, but weird place to have just a little bit of expertise of the experience of that. It's hard to imagine.
Yeah, and how long it may take to really understand what they're saying.
Yeah.
Because you said it took like 24 hours from the fog to sort of go away, but even the enormity of the whole thing of, hey, look at all of these people that have reached out. Wow, that's crazy. And then as time passes, you sit
That's what
back
it was for me.
and see some of that and you're like, oh, wow, look at all of these people that have reached out that were wondering about, my well-being and what was happening. And, eventually he'll be able to fully
his experience, all of that process, all of it.
All of that as he continues to get better, and a remarkable turnaround, a turning point that they had last night, the doctor said, for Damar Hamlin. We'll hear from Andy Reid coming up very soon. And then Dave Tobe, Eric Bieniemy, Steve Spagnuolo, Travis Kelce, all at the podium today as they wrap up their practice today. And they will get ready for the Raiders coming up Saturday at 3:30. So Andy Reid will lead us off with the press conference today. You also said Sky Moore.
He was the only one not at practice today, so
okay,
hopefully nobody else ends up needing a designation.
Yeah, that would be nice if that was the case. They also activated McCole Hardman yesterday.
Yes,
we
so
didn't
that's
even
true.
talk about that.
We don't really know exactly where he's at in that process. I'm sure we'll find out.
So if they
and Harrison
activate
Butker was at practice after the back spasms kept him out yesterday.
Yes, thank you.
I'm guessing that's one of the reasons Reid's talking today. A lot of injuries to sort through.
Could be. Yep. Here's Andy Reid.
All right. I don't have a whole lot for you since we just talked, but Sky Moore will be listed as out. And Butker did practice today, so that's a good thing. There's a chance we do bring somebody in, just as a precautionary measure. McCole practiced today, and we'll just see about him, his day-to-day as we go here. And with that, we look forward to playing the Raiders again. We know they're a good football team. The last 9 games have been as close as you can believe, right? So all come down to the end. Anyways, with that, time's yours. You want to go ahead and let him in?
Joe Tooney as well as Luxurious Sneed.
Yeah, all the rest of the guys practice. Yeah, they all practice.
Coach, there's been some good news, I guess, out of Buffalo. Does that give any peace of mind to your guys that good things are happening there?
Yeah, well, I mean, we're all saying our prayers for him, so it's great that the news is good, and we're praying that keeps up. So, and I'm sure I haven't talked to each individual guy, so, but I know that they're all in on him getting better, So.
Coach, any conversation with the league whether or not they would still consider moving this week's game or doing a change with this game? Or?
No, I mean right now it's just we're playing tomorrow and going to Vegas. So,
There's a lot of talk about the number 1 seed. I'm sure y'all not getting any talks to that show some on the game.
No, I don't know what's going on there, but I know we need to take care of our business, and that's all I can help control, right? So I don't know about anything else.
Have you talked much about that as a goal this week to go ahead and try to get that number 1 seed? I mean, is that just sort of understood in the locker room?
I think what we've talked about the most is the game plan, the process, going through that, staying in tune with that at this time, and then that's what we can control. I've never been with all that other stuff, but it's about what you can control right now, and that's taking care of business. Do your best that you can do.
And in the past, when guys have come back for their first game, you've tried to ease them in or give them a certain amount of snap counts. Is that the similar situation for McCole?
I never put McCole in a bad position there. I mean, this would be very similar to what Tony went through. I mean, if it's 3 snaps, it's 3 snaps. If it's 5 snaps, it's 5 snaps. I mean, I know he's going to want to go. I mean, I know that he loves to play, and so I'm going to be holding him back. I'm sure if when we get to that point.
Coach, I know this is in the Brett Beach realm, but considering you might bring someone in for Harrison Butker, Matthew Wright was a guy that's available, and is that someone that would potentially be on the call list? Yeah,
you know what? That'd probably be for Brett. I haven't gotten into all that with him. We're on a short. We're on a short week, and as coaches, we're just hammering it down right now, just making sure we have everything covered.
Coach, this has been kind of a subdued week, but yesterday marked 10 years in Kansas City for you, for your work anniversary.
Yeah.
Does that milestone mean anything to you? I mean, what's the last 10 years of your life been like?
I've never eaten as much barbecue. And I'm coming out of the 10 years still loving every bite I've taken. Listen, I've thoroughly enjoyed it. The Hunts are a phenomenal family to work for. And I mean, you guys included in all that, man. It's that part's been a pleasure. So we just you don't get a chance to really relax and enjoy that. You're moving forward, and that's kind of where we're at on this week. So.
The most unique part about that is that you've been able to do this twice now. What do you think the key has been to just the lasting part?
Yeah, being around good people, I think, is we had great ownership in Philadelphia, great ownership here. Starts from the top, and we've all had a piece of it. So you guys have seen it firsthand. Everybody's contributed, and that's that's the important thing. Good people. And that's players included. So I mean, players, coaches, and everybody.
Coach, if someone's following your footsteps, what advice would you give them to have the standard of excellence that you all have had over the last 7 years, winning the division title? Because it's a lot of hard work, it's a lot of games, it's a lot of wear and tear on the coaches, the family, the players, going into the playoffs and stuff like that, especially the deep playoffs. What type of advice would you give others?
Yeah, listen, you do what you can do, and hard work's always part of it. Honesty's part of it. So having good people that you're working with, so you help take a little bit of load off of each other's back is important.
The last game of the season is always a little bit different depending on what you have to play for, but like Adam said, do you still anticipate that the starters would play the same amount, or you might adjust the snap counts a little bit this week based on that?
I mean, we're going in, with starters for 4 quarters. I mean, that's our thinking. So, yeah.
All right.
Thank you. All right, there's Andy Reid talking about this game coming up this weekend. Number 1 seed, don't know. Take care of the business. Let things figure out there. Have you talked about the number 1 seed? No, we've talked about game plan because that's what we can control right now. McCole Hardman, they won't put him in a bad position. Similar to Tony, 2 snaps, 3 snaps, 5 snaps, whatever it might be. Here's Dave Tope.
A little tweaked up. He's doing right now.
He looked good today at practice. He practiced. He had a back spasm, so we're hoping it's not a serious thing. But you always have to be careful. So I'm sure Beach is going to have some kind of insurance policy, and so we'll be ready to go.
The battery between Tommy and Harrison, what have you seen out of there from your vantage point that they can improve upon or something?
Well, we made a mistake. Obviously he dropped the ball. It happens, but it hasn't happened, in a long time. So it happened. It seems like we've had a lot of things. It's not seems like it. We have had a lot of things. So it's just the timing was bad of it, when it happened, and it's something that we don't expect. Obviously it's not going to happen again.
Dave, you just said there's a lot of things that have occurred this season.
Yeah.
Now asking you to look back on your coaching tenure, but is this perhaps
By far the most
difficult year?
Most things that's ever happened for me in my career.
In one season.
Statistically, it's probably the lowest we've been ever, in my career. So it's just one of those years. We have a lot of good football in front of us. That's the way I'm talking to the players. I think we've gotten better. When you look at different things, and I've said this before in here about the rookies getting better and better and better, and they are. I really feel like our best football is in front of us.
What was the coaching tips adjustment for Kadarius in that situation? Because obviously you know how good he is at making.
He's great.
First thing
if you watch his talent on that one particular play, how he was able to create on his own, because we had a rush call. If you looked at it, we had a rush call, so we're not holding up everybody. So he gets the ball wasn't kicked great, so he gets the ball in his hand. He starts it left, so he has the ball in his left arm. He quickly cuts to the right, but he doesn't have a lot of time to switch the ball back to the right. Because if you try to switch the ball back to your right early, all of a sudden somebody hits you. So he decided to take off to the right with the ball in his left hand. The guy stripped it out on him. So I think if he would have had 1 more step, 2 more steps, he would have had time to be able to get that ball into the right hand. Would have been okay. But if you are going to have the ball in your left hand and you're going to the right, you got to really secure it. That's the coaching point. It happened. He was sorry about it. Obviously, he's sick about it because I think he would have had a touchdown. I really believe it. It was wide open out there. So, he is going to make some plays for us down the stretch here. In the playoffs when the games matter most, and they're coming.
Something that you always hear is north and south with ball carriers, but there are guys like Kadarius that laterally maybe you can get more yardage. What's the balance of coaching?
Well, Kadarius, he actually looks to go north and south quicker than he does going outside. If you look at all his returns, the touches that he's had, he's Sometimes he probably should go outside and he goes inside. So, I mean, he's getting more of a, every rep he gets, he's getting better and he's getting more of a feel and it's really about trust as a punt returner. It's trust in your blockers. Coming out of college, when he did it in college, you have to make everybody miss because everybody's on you right now. And he's still got that mentality in his brain right now. We're trying to get him to trust his blockers, and the NFL is different. The gunners are down there first, but the inside guys aren't. And trust his blockers and trust the return and go. And he's got the talent. You can see the talent, and we're going to stick with him.
Coach, he had a blocked field goal, just barely blocked.
Tip.
Take us to the line of scrimmage on those. It doesn't seem like people are always trying to block field goals, but someone gets through. Is it just a little lapse, or did the guy make a really
every field goal, every field goal that's attempted, they're trying to block it. Make no mistake. It seems like they're not, but they are. If one guy makes a mistake, because it's like I talked about before about the operation up front. If one guy leans too much and they happen to be swimming in that gap, and the guy gets his hands up and the ball trajectory is perfect, they get a hand on it, and that's what happened. It was another one of those things that happened, untimely, obviously.
Like you said, you have this many things going on in a season. Is there a fine line with the coaching points as far as
I mean, you keep coaching, you keep stressing the same things. I mean, that's same things I've been stressing for 22 years. And things happen. I mean, and even on great years, things like that happen. You get a block, you get a drop snap. Things happen. We just had an unusual amount this year. Maybe the football gods are, give us some things here down the stretch. That's what we're hoping for.
Dave, you talked about you guys obviously had 4 fumbles on punt returns, but you sound like you want to make a big play.
We had 3 muffs and we had a fumble.
Yeah. I'm just saying, there's no changing the aggression for you guys. You guys are still with that. I mean, obviously you could fair catch it. You could just
you could fair catch. You could drop a fair catch too. I mean, you're going to catch the balls, and when you have a chance to return it, you're going to return it. You're not going to just fair catch everything. That's not the answer.
That's what I'm saying.
That's not the answer. That's not the answer. Yeah, the answer is to keep working, trust your guys, secure the football, and it's it's across the board. We have to do a better job, ball security everywhere.
Where's your confidence level in Tommy as a holder? Not talking about as a punter now, just as a holder right now.
It's good. I'm totally confident in him. Totally.
Coach, you mentioned Kadarius is feeling pretty bad after the muff.
Yes.
But,
he was able to. Andy got right back to him.
Andy, to him right away. How important was that?
It was huge, and I even said that on the sideline. I said, I'm glad you guys went right back to him. And because I went right back to him. I wasn't going to take him out.
Unrelated to this, Devin Hester was named a finalist for the Hall of Fame.
Thanks for bringing that up.
One of your favorites of all time. Just what about him? What made him so
God, he's the greatest. I mean, hopefully he gets in this year. Obviously, he was up last year in the first ballot. Didn't get it. Hopefully this year he gets it. I've talked to him before. They decided last night that he made it. I talked to him during the day, and he was, looking forward to possibly making it to this point again, and he did. So, we're all happy, and now it's just a matter of getting enough votes and getting in. I mean, because I'll be there with him when he gets that thing. I'll be sitting right there crying with him.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. See you later.
All right, there's Dave Tobe talking about the Chiefs and the operation. The answer is not to fair catch anything.
Everything. Not to fair catch everything.
Well, yes, sometimes you can't get to the ball and you just let it bounce. Other than that, go ahead and fair catch everything. He is right, though. It is unfortunate that the ball got hit by Tony because he did have a wall of blockers and he might have taken it to the house. Probably does. Here's Eric Bieniemy.
Afternoon. Hope all is well with everyone. Happy New Year to you. I know there's been a lot going on this week, but obviously there's a lot of good news that's coming out, and I'm not one to hear to report it, but it's amazing what the power of prayer can do. But with that said, I'm all ears.
Coach, with all this going on elsewhere around the league, you got your guys in the meeting room, you see them on the practice field, especially after today, getting more good news. Mentally, do you feel like that really helped buoy them up a little bit? Do you feel like they're ready to go play a game?
You know what? I thought our guys were ready a few days ago, actually, and obviously we've all handled this a certain way, and just like when we talked as a staff, we wanted to be sensitive to the nature because everybody's going to handle it a different way. I think our staff, our head coach does, and this organization, we have the resources available. We have a clinician here on staff, and we open it up for discussion. And our guys understand exactly what took place, and indirectly we all are impacted and affected by that. But the thing that we do know as well is that we have to make sure that we stay the course. We're going to be sensitive to the issue, but also making sure that we're giving all the support that we can and getting on our knees and praying for a safe recovery for him and his family. And, you know, when it's all said and done, we can only control the things that we can control. So we're just making sure our guys are living in this moment right now, and the rest will take care of itself.
You ever been through anything or seen anything like that before, and then just when it happened, your reaction to that?
No, I haven't. And I mean, I think I'm like everyone else. I've been playing contact football since the age of 6. And so never have I seen anything like this on the football field. I know some of us of age when Hank Gather's situation happened. So it just takes you back. It just gives you a different perspective on life. And it makes you thankful and grateful for all the blessings that we have, but also, too, just to acknowledge that there is a human element of this because, you know, we got guys that put on a Superman cape every week. And when it's all said and done with, I mean, we all breathe in, you know, the same air and try and just do things the right way and give ourselves a chance to be happy every day. And it's unfortunate that this situation happened, but I think one thing that you can take out of it is just it's amazing how when everybody comes together for a good cause and pause and not look at each other for whatever way, you know, it's amazing how things happen. And it's just been amazing watching this unfold.
Coach, I'm curious, when you see that happen, not even just that situation, but just a normal football game when it happens to one of your players, how are you all able to compartmentalize and, saying to stay focused on the task at hand when something, whether it's that particular situation in Buffalo or Cincinnati or if it happens to one of your players where they go down and you expect the players to come right back and continue doing on the work?
I think it's tough because you're kind of asking two different questions. That situation, I think, is totally different when a player is hurt. You never want to see a player lay down. That's always tough. You never want to see a player injured. And just like anything and everything in this profession, the only thing we want to see a guy, go, hey, he's thumbs up or whatever. You want to make sure that that guy is okay. I think that situation is a little bit different because of the issue that took place. And but as players, you and coaches, you've learned to compartmentalize everything to whereas you have to move on because life is going to continue. And now, compare and contrast to, a very delicate situation like my son. I have a kid that's mentally and physically disabled. Nobody ever gives you a handbook on how to parent and how perfect it's going to be. And you never know all the issues that you're going to have to deal with. And so sometimes life deals you certain things, and you have to learn how to handle and control that particular moment and handle that situation moving forward. So it's a part of life, and you realize that, hey, there's certain things that happen that are very, very delicate situations, and you try and handle all of them appropriately at that particular time.
Coach, understanding the game here pales in comparison to what's going on in Cincinnati. For the team, how much do you need to see a clean, complete game for your offense to gain some confidence heading into the playoffs?
You know what? I'm still looking for us because obviously we're striving for perfection in order to achieve excellence. We're not there yet. But I will say this, there was some positive that came out of that game. And I know it's hard to pick from, but I thought our guys hit a lull in that game. But you know what I appreciated that we did? We did an outstanding job of staying together, and then we just played through it. And it didn't impact us. We didn't allow it to mentally get us down. That was the thing that stood out to me. And, that was growth. And those are the things that you're looking for. Obviously, number-wise, you always want to play up to your best. the thing is, sometimes life happens, and sometimes we got to deal with it in an appropriate way. I like the way the guys hung together. I like the way they weathered the storm, and I thought we did a great job, and I'm going to say this, of dragging our ass across the finish line when we needed to do so.
Is it sometimes frustrating? Sorry, Dan. When it's sometimes frustrating, though, it seems like you play your best offensive ball when you get down, like you did the third quarter, or then, like, 3 of the past 4 games, with the exception of the Seattle game, that seems to be the case. It's just you guys just kicking into gear. I mean, I know it's a great thing that you're coming back from a deficit, but it's also, why did you keep foot on the pedal?
Because you want to put consistent behavior on tape. And so when you're not playing as well, you always want to try and figure out why aren't we playing well. But yes, it is a testament to the men that we have and the character of the people that we have on this team that we can find a way to pull ourselves out of it and be at our best when our best is needed. But obviously, we want those guys to play with that same energy, that same enthusiasm, and utilizing the same fundamentals throughout that time, because we feel that there's still a lot left on the table for us to put on tape. But for whatever reason, it's not happening. But the thing I'm proud of is that these guys are finding ways to stick together, to grow together, and I think it's helping to define our character as we continue to grow.
Coach, I know Patrick, if he has a great game this weekend, will probably push the MVP, but as a former running back and someone who calls the plays, do you feel like you get away from the run game too often and too much? Sometimes in the latter games, put you in a situation where you always have to pass?
So you got to understand, I've been a part of the running back club my whole entire life. I think my card got revoked a long time ago when I started coordinating, and we started throwing the ball around. So yeah, do I feel like a sellout sometimes? Yes. But here's the thing. Obviously, we're always going to put our guys in the best situations possible. And let me just say this, that Denver defense is pretty good, okay? Those guys did a heck of a job up front, but sometimes you just want to make sure that we're giving ourselves to be at our best when our best is needed, but also giving us the best opportunity to be successful, And obviously, yes, do we probably need to run it more? Yes, we do, okay? I'll be the first to say that. But on top of that, we just want to make sure we're doing everything under the sun to put us in position to be successful.
Couple more. Last one. Thanks, everyone.
All right, you guys take care. Thank you.
It's like an auction. All day and all done. We got one more over here. We got one more. We had 8. We're looking for 9. Anybody? Up. Sold. Thank you. Right over here to the offensive coordinator leaving the room. The
feels like a sellout is such a funny
running
line.
back card is revoked.
I just heard him just like in the queue on my head. He was like, I get calls about it all the time.
He's a sellout, and the running back card revoked in the running back room. The positive he took from that Denver game was that they hit a lull, and they still stayed together and played through it. That would, I'm guessing, be the third quarter when they had 3 and outs, 9 plays, 8 yards, and then came back with back-to-back touchdowns after trailing 17-13 that time. Here is Travis Kelce.
Obviously, getting some good news on Hamlin. As you guys are players getting prepared to play this game and trying to keep yourselves in your right frame of mind, good to get. How much does good news like that later here in the week kind of help you guys do that?
Man, it's amazing to hear that about DeMar, and obviously everybody in this building, everyone across the league, and everybody that's aware of the situation is all pulling for him. That's all that really matters about any of this. Take football out of it. His life is looking like it's looking positive. So that's all we really care about when it comes to him.
You guys have had some conversations, I guess, team meetings and things about this. And what have you learned about yourself or your teammates through any of these conversations?
You realize how much of a family league it is. There's a few ties to him as a football player and him as a person in this building, and we knew that it wasn't easy for anybody to see that or deal with it. So becoming more aware of how many doctors, how many medical professionals there are in a stadium, so that if something like that does happen, they can try and handle it as fast as possible the right way. Yeah, that was kind of reassuring. But at the end of the day, until he's okay, like I said, I think everybody has the same mentality.
Travis, I had asked Coach B and me about you as a player currently. How do you all compartmentalize? I mean, obviously you watch it on television, but if it were to happen, to one of your teammates, how do you all actually compartmentalize to be able to keep going further and keep playing the game?
I think both coaches did the right things by ending it right there. There's nothing much that I think you could do as a player to get yourself back in the right frame of mind until you know that he's all right.
Travis, was it any more difficult preparing this week for a game, given what happened?
1,000%. 1,000%. I mean, it's on the back of everybody's mind where everybody's waiting on the ticker to see if he's, what's the next update on him, how's he doing. And, it's, I want to say it's hard, but it is what it is. When you see somebody, especially when, you hear ties of how good of a guy he is and how good of a football player he is, it's just, it's unfortunate, man. It's not what you want to go through the building with.
You feel like you're as prepared at this point in the week to play a game as you normally are?
Yeah.
Yesterday marked Andy's 10th year anniversary of coming to Kansas City, and he's only been here a few months longer than you have. What have those 10 years meant to you and working with him?
I mean, it's been everything for me. He's helped not only develop my game, but he's helped change really the outlook on what a tight end can be. And I appreciate him guiding me in that. And without a doubt, I'm extremely fortunate. Everybody's always asking how the heck I get so open. I'm like, well, I got Andy Reid, baby. When you got Coach Reid, he can get my dad open if he was out there. So I've been unbelievably fortunate to be under his guidance, program the way he is, because I do genuinely believe he does it the right way. And I don't plan on stopping this thing anytime soon, and I hope he doesn't.
Travis, you can win the number one seed depending on what rules they put in place, I guess. But what kind of motivation has that been for you guys this week?
It's been one of our goals since the beginning of the season. Win the division, get the number one seed, be able to get an extra bye weekend before the playoffs start, and that's always on our mind, and we know that's at stake. It's been at stake, and we've been trying to play our tails off to put ourselves in the best position when it comes playoff time.
This is the last regular season game, and the MVP is judged on that. Not that you guys are all single award people, but why is Patrick the
Because
MVP?
he's past the MVP, that's why. As easy as that.
Last time you played this team, you had 4 touchdowns here at Arrowhead. Going to Vegas this weekend.
I didn't do much other than that, though.
I know too much of you, but how about the next this
I
weekend?
mean, I respect a lot of guys over there. They got a great defense. Max Crosby is playing as good as anybody in the National Football League, an absolute game wrecker. And we're going to go in there and try and play our best football. I don't think we've done that quite yet. There's been glimpses of it, maybe a half here, 3 quarters here, but we got to go put out 4 quarters of Chiefs football the way we know how.
And the way that what things have happened this week, you feel like you all are prepared, no distractions as you go into this game?
It's been a tough week for everybody, so I can't say that, for me, I think I'm as prepared as I can be. But I know that there's guys that have been dealing with it that know him, that are obviously more affected by it because of a personal standpoint. So I know I am.
Travis, playing all this time for the Chiefs, does this rivalry still mean the same to you?
1,000%.
Really?
1,000%.
I mean, you look at this team as the rival?
I really look at all 3 teams in the division as the rival. You can't put one over the other in my mind. I know a lot of the history will tell you that Chiefs Raiders is where it's at, and then recently Chiefs Broncos. But I think that Chiefs Raiders will always be one of the biggest rivalries in football, and sure enough, you'll probably see it this Sunday how well we go at it.
Last one, Sam.
Travis, you and Jason talked about the concussion you had against the Titans. How long before you, I guess for lack of a better phrase, got over that? Like, how long did that affect you?
Well, unfortunately, that concussion ended the season because it was in a playoff game. We ended up losing that game. But so I got just about the entire season to get back to, entire off season, to get back to full health. But
just mentally, I mean, like just to get past what had happened.
I mean, to be honest, I still really haven't gotten past it. I always think about that game. It was my last game with Alex Smith. I thought giving him a chance at winning a Super Bowl was one of the biggest things for me, knowing how much that guy had been through up to that point in his career. But, you just use it as motivation, man.
Thank you.
Have a good one, guys.
All right, there's Travis Kelce. Interesting there at the end about that game against Tennessee in the playoffs and the concussion and him laying on the field. And he and Jason had that conversation in their podcast, and Jason Kelce saying what he felt immediately as to, his heart and seeing his brother laying on the field like that, but still not over it. Maybe not over it from a standpoint of like, okay, are you worried every time you touch the ball you're going to get a concussion, but still not over it because he felt like it was an opportunity to get Alex Smith a Super Bowl if he was not concussed, if he stayed in that game, which they probably win that one. Super Bowl, probably not, but they probably end up winning that game if Kelce's healthy and playing. So, and hopefully he does more against the Raiders than he did the first time.
Not that much, 4 touchdowns and not much else beyond that.
Didn't do much outside of that.
7 catches for 25 yards, just cracked it back open.
Yes, only 3 other catches besides the touchdowns. I mean
what are you even doing out there?
I
also
hit the lottery for $500 million, but it wasn't $800 million, so it's kind of disappointing.
There was a lot of interesting stuff in there. Where a lot of all the coaches who have talked about everything going on in Buffalo and Cincinnati have been really good, but Kelce admitting 1,000% this week, preparing for this week's been harder than in other weeks. Says they, are prepared for this game, but it's been a different week of prep than usual because this week's been harder. It's been different.
What he said is, for me, I'm as prepared as I've been. But other guys have personal relationships, and they've, dealt with it different, and it's been a lot harder on them. So are they as prepared? I guess the answer for him would be, you got to ask them. I know me, I'm as prepared as I can be. And yes, how difficult this week? Is it different? 1,000%. It's on everybody's minds. We've been waiting for news and going to social media and clicking and trying to figure out what's going on. It's been difficult. So there you go.
Real quick news from college basketball. Chris Beard has been fired per a few reports here. Kirk Bowles of the Statesman first added. He's added that it's for cause, which makes sense. Waiting to see more information on that, but that's the first report there.
There you go. One more quick little nugget on Kelce. We'll take a timeout. We'll hear from Steve Spagnuolo. He's going to be up at the podium here in just a little bit. But Kelce first asked, prepared by, I think, Adam Teicher. His response was yes. And then Darren came back around and sort of asked it kind of the same but a little different. And that's when he said, well, yeah, it's not easy. But for me, I'm as prepared as I can be. That's when he got into that answer. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. We'll hear from Steve Spagnuolo next.
Take the show with you by listening live on 810WHB.com, in the 810 mobile app, or by subscribing to The Zone wherever you get your podcasts. The Zone with Jason Anderson.
The horn just blew. Can I, does that mean I'm done?
Weekdays from 10 to 2 on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
Horn's going to blow on the show, Steve, if you don't get to the podium soon. Steve Spagnuolo will be at the podium here, we think very shortly. We were told there was going to be a little bit of a break between Kelsey and Steve Spagnuolo, defensive coordinator of the Chiefs. Do have some news to pass along. According to the AP, the NFL will not resume the Bills-Bengals game that was suspended Monday night after Buffalo safety Damar Hamlin collapsed, went into cardiac arrest on the field. Two people familiar with the decision told the AP on Thursday that has been discussed as the most likely outcome, but no official report had been released. Now the Associated Press is reporting that the game between the Bills and the Bengals will not be made up. They continue. Both people spoke to the AP on condition of anonymity because the league is still figuring out how to determine playoff seedings and scheduling. The NFL Players Association must approve those changes. So there you go. Which is also a wrinkle to this that Roger Goodell can't just simply come out and say, this is what we will do, and you will accept these changes by God because I have said it. That the NFL Players Association must approve if it's a number one seed gets to choose the bye or the home field, or they just simply play the playoffs as it were that everybody played the same amount of games, but it's the winning percentage, and therefore the Chiefs beat the Raiders. If they do that, then they'll be the one seed, and too bad. Or expand the playoffs to 8 teams, and nobody gets a bye, which has also been talked about. So the Players Association will be voting to approve those changes. I'm also assuming the Players Association reps or Demery Smith might be involved in some of these conversations. That the NFL will be talking with them of here are the different things we're thinking about and going through. Let's talk about this together so that we don't have to come up with an agreement and you say no and then we got to start all over. So whenever they announce what it'll be that. Because I don't think they make that public until the players are
the NFLPA is not finding this out the same way we are, would be my very strong hunch.
Plus, even if that was the case, would the NFLPA be like, no, that's not good enough, sorry. I know this whole unprecedented thing with Damar Hamlin that we all care about and think of, and everybody's going through something. That's not good enough for us, though, how you're adjusting to this person going into cardiac arrest and fighting for his life. Nope, not going to do it. We need something that's better for us. I would guess that would not be the case. 913-912-4810 is the text line, 913-912-4810. Some of the texts or tweets that we're just assuming it's going to be Chiefs and Bills when they talk about the different number one seed versus home field advantage versus getting the bye and the neutral side and things like that. No, I don't think it's an assumption that would be the case, but it's all sort of surrounding if that were to be the matchup in the AFC Championship game. The interesting part of the wording is that if they're talking about the AFC Championship game being played at a neutral site, the wording is teams that are impacted by playing one less game, if they're involved in that game, would be at a neutral site. The Chiefs are the 1 seed, and the Bills and the Bengals play in the divisional round, then they would play somebody no matter what. It will be involved with a team that didn't play that extra game. So that would then move to a neutral site. So we'll see. All of this stuff yet to be determined and figured out. So
everybody's kind of got like their favorite. It's basically we're in house rule territory. You know, you play a board game and then there's something that comes up that you've never interacted with before. You go, okay, we lost the rule. So what if we just do it this way? It kind of feels like that's where that's what the AFC playoff picture is at right now, where there have been a lot of bowls of Skyline thrown at the wall. A couple ideas seem okay. A couple of the ideas seem pretty rough. At this point, if you're just purely from the Chiefs' perspective, all you can do is go beat the Raiders. Go beat the Raiders, then see what the NFL has sort of handed down from there. I imagine, I hope, I suppose, that teams on all sides will be relatively understanding about the complexities of all this, but all the Chiefs can do is go beat the Raiders on Saturday.
Also have some baseball news involving the Royals by 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon. The Orioles have claimed Lewin Diaz off waivers So that is interesting. If people remember Lewin Diaz, then you are better than I because I have no idea who he is. But by claiming him off waivers, they have DFA'd Ryan O'Hearn.
He's coming back.
Bring him home. If I've said it once, I've said it dozens of times.
If I've said it once, I've said it once.
Bring
I just said
back
it.
Eric Hosmer, Mike Moustakas, Ryan O'Hearn, all of the real cornerstones of that World Series run.
I mean, Moustakas got DFA'd.
Yeah, no, I know.
Hosmer go to the Cubs.
He just signed with the Cubs.
Oh yeah, you're right. Darn.
so
Okay. Well,
they'd have to trade Ryan O'Hearn for him.
I have
do you
so
wanna-
many good World Series memories with Ryan O'Hearn. I don't know. It's
You want to do that? I mean, what if they traded for Ryan O'Hearn and gave the Orioles cash considerations?
that would never work.
Just
How will you
Why-
remember
why
the
do you
Ryan O'Hearn era in Baltimore? What was your favorite part?
Probably the phone call he made to the GM that they had acquired him, and then figuring out when he was going to get to Baltimore before they told him, "Don't worry about it." That's probably my favorite part.
I'm sure I need the details of the actual trade to come out, and then for a baseball salary nerd to help translate it to me, because I imagine there's some reason that trade happened, but I can't understand it from 30,000 foot view.
I'm gonna put it right next to my Carmelo Anthony Hawks jersey.
Oh my goodness! He actually played for a second though, right? Did he play?
No.
I thought he suited up in those terrible jerseys one time.
Nope.
I'm going to have
Rasheed
my
Wallace played 2 games for the Hawks.
Also weird.
I know one game, and then he was traded again.
my Billy Donovan Orlando Magic.
Oh, that's a good
jersey
one.
as a coach.
That's a good one.
You one of those things? Yeah. The Dana Altman and Arkansas Razorbacks. What do you got?
Beards? Here's, ready? The Hawks made Carmelo Anthony a jersey they paid him $25.5 million to never wear. That's a story from SB Nation. So there was one of those horrible jerseys made up, but as far as I can tell, he never put it on.
Did it ever get to a shelf at a store, like at a rally house?
Was this a...
Which, by the way, shout out to Rally House. When I was in Louisville, taking care of some of my buddies and Christmas gifts for some UK, some U of L gear while I was there in Louisville at the Rally House there at the mall. So it was nice to be like, where am I going to shop? Oh, I know. I'll just go to the Rally House here.
Because they got you covered. You know the selection's going to be excellent.
And now they've got my friends covered.
That's beautiful. I basically handled Renee's entire family's Christmas presents through Rally House and ADA. I mean, I'm thinking now, completely everything I got for the soon-to-be in-laws.
Wow, I bet they're very excited about the
they're a big K-State. They're a big K-State family, and I've been really having to deal with some anti-K-State accusations.
That's right.
So I'm
from
really,
your family?
From them, yeah.
What?
Because I've got I don't know. I kind of like did some KU media stuff first, and so people accuse me of being a KU homer despite having no particular connections. I'm rooting for the local teams, generally speaking.
Yeah.
I know this is hard to believe. But I had to really make a statement this Christmas, so there's a lot of purple going around the household.
I mean, I hosted the KU Sports Night before I moved.
You're a diehard KU fan. I've often accused you of that.
Once, one night a week. It was the 1 hour show.
What was
Sports Update.
What was your favorite memory of that, and did you enjoy it more or less than your favorite part of the Ryan O'Hearn Baltimore Orioles era?
Well, it was longer than the Ryan O'Hearn Baltimore.
Certainly.
One show was longer.
Yeah.
Was longer than the Ryan O'Hearn Baltimore Orioles tenure. Oh, it's fine. You know, you can talk KU sports. Not a big deal. You can talk K-State sports.
We can talk about all of
them. Talk
them.
Mizzou sports. Doesn't really matter.
I just got real defensive about this anti-purple accusation I was dealing with.
Should. I mean, we deal with it all the time, anti-purple accusation. Although it's interesting, on Monday, I didn't receive any, why aren't you talking K-State football?
Yeah, well.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I didn't receive those.
That made me, my empathy is improving because what you just did there to K-State fans made me a little sad. We talked about K-State basketball to lead the show. So
we spent 20 minutes, yeah.
That was fun.
We're fine.
We're good, everybody.
We're fine. I root for the jersey that's green. So if that means that KU, K-State, Mizzou, football, basketball all do well, yes.
I love all my college-fan-based children equally.
I love Lamp. I feel like you're just naming things in the room.
Got that reference at least.
There you go.
In Merlin X.
So, Steve Spagnuolo apparently not making it to the podium anytime soon.
He'll be on the program.
He'll be a part of the program.
If he shows up.
There you go. Program coming up next.
Your